What's up guys, hope everyone is doing well. In this video I'm going to be going over some updates for XYO. This one will likely end up being quite a long one as well, so get prepared. This is something you're interested in, where I'm going to be going over a number of fundamental things in the first section of this video. I'm going to be going over, as you can see here, a number of things on the X page for XYO, at official XYO. And then we're going to go into the GitBook again. There's a few tabs that have been added to go over XYO Layer 1, just basically just going over the future in terms of the structure and function of the blockchain going ahead as it evolves. And I've already made a video, an in-depth video, is almost precisely 4 hours long. If you haven't seen that, if you're interested, it's me going over the structure and function of XYO Layer 1, going over the GitBook, what was available at that time of making the video, and also going over my own presentation and trying to distill and condense the information and convey it as simply as I could, while also connecting it to ancient Greece and a few another concept from the ancient Indo-Aryan culture of the mythopoetic minds back during those times. So I'd recommend to check that out if you're interested. Here, like I said, going over the stuff pertaining to XYO, the coming up news, and then transitioning into going over the altcoin index, what that means for altcoins going ahead, alt season, then transitioning obviously into, to end the video, the technical analysis, really trying to wrap all this up and give as best as I can an objective and holistic extrapolation of the current data into the future, where XYO might be going price-wise, where it might be going as a business, and also as a layer 1 blockchain solution. But nonetheless, here, as I said, the X page for XYO. Now again, as they have in their bio, it's important to remember that they have slated XYO Layer 1 to release this quarter of 2025. It is currently the last month of that quarter, halfway into September, so obviously it's needing to drop very soon. Now if we go down, I believe it was actually one of the first posts that I wanted to go over, going down around September 10th, 11th, 12th. There's been a series of posts here. We can see this main one here, September 16th, countdown to launch begins. Now, obviously, there's mystery surrounding this. They didn't say exactly what it was, but if you're putting your context clues together and you have some sort of pre-existing information of what's going on with XYO as a blockchain solution, then it makes a lot of sense, leading to the more likely this is clearly referring to the launch of Layer 1, finally exiting public beta, testnet, going live as a mainnet, as they have slated before the end of quarter 4 of 2025. So this, again, September 16th. This video will be going out on the 15th, so it's coming very, very soon. If we continue to go down here, as I said, there's a few things added to the GitBook. We'll, as I get into that eventually, but I want to briefly point these out. There's going to be some architecture additions, block structure. Here they mentioned bound witness. I don't believe this is one of the new ones I'll be going over, but this was also gone over in the video that I was speaking about earlier. Link that as a card at the beginning of the video if you're interested. There's also some node structure tabs added, being related to the block producer nodes. Here are the validator nodes and the efficiency nodes. Lastly, here on the X page for XYO is this post 17 hours ago. XYO shortage is imminent. Secure yours now and whatever exchange you choose to buy it through. Now this just further confirms that it's basically 100% at this point that what's coming September 16th and not too much time will be the launch of XYO Layer 1. And a big aspect of this Layer 1 is, again, the semiotic dual token model. XYO has the staking, governance, functionality token, and also with XL1 being the gas token that's powering really the actual activities and functions on the chain, the Layer 1 blockchain itself, where XYO is acting kind of as that foundation, anchors the system, makes sure that it is standing strong, whereas XL1 is kind of really doing the work and providing the power to the system so it can do its thing. And an aspect of this is going to be the staking or the locking up of XYO. And it's been said by representatives, for example, Marcus Levin, one of the co-founders of XYO, that they're expecting a significant amount of XYO to be locked up. Depends upon what is meant by significant when that term is used. But I don't personally believe if we, especially sooner rather than later, begin to see the circulating supply of XYO get close to 10 billion, which it's currently sitting at 13.65 billion, I will be quite shocked. I don't personally think there will be a significant amount. Again, it just really depends upon what is meant by significant. Maybe I'm going to end up being wrong. I totally could. But I mean, I would probably expect maybe a few billion or so, which I mean would get it close to 10 billion. So I mean, really anything below 10 billion will shock me. I'm kind of leaning more towards maybe like a billion, pushing 2 sooner, if anything, rather than maybe 6 months down the road, maybe 12 months down the road, maybe we'll actually see something pushing, towards a half of the overall circulating supply of current being locked up, which is obviously going to, it's a recipe for price appreciation over time. The lower the supply, obviously, that's going to affect the price, which has been a big aspect of the whole dual token model being symbiotic. And one of the things I feel like a number of people haven't particularly, maybe earlier on, obviously, so when this was first being launched, but something that people didn't particularly wrap their minds around properly, especially with a lot of the criticism that was surrounding the introduction of the dual token model. But when it comes to the staking aspect, as I said in the last video when I went over the structure and function of XYO Layer 1, it was quite literally necessity on multiple fronts, mainly 2 for XL1 to be introduced, which one being so that the actual Layer 1 blockchain can function properly, because XYO is a deflationary capped supply token, would have to have had its identity fundamentally altered, which leads me to point 2 being, again, one of the necessities as to why XL1 had to be introduced was if XL1 wasn't introduced, XYO would have had to take on the responsibility characteristics of XL1, which would have eroded the identity of XYO, and therefore that thing which you have been investing in for years, some of you at least for years, maybe more some recently within the last number of months, been investing in XYO, you would have no longer been investing in the same token. The social contract made between business or XYO and investor and supporter and adopter of the technology would have been significantly tampered with and basically null and void, because again, the identity of the token would have been altered. And on top of that, again, like I said, if XL1 wasn't introduced and XYO didn't take on any of the changes it needs necessary, then a deflationary cap supply token wouldn't be able to properly function as a gas token and a utility token in the sense of powering and driving the XYO Layer 1 blockchain itself. Now, another thing that's interesting here, as I'm speaking about the staking of XYO, is that if you actually, and I'll bring up an image here as I'm speaking about it, but if you go and look at the top holders of XYO in their addresses, the top 4, the first 3 are quite literally identical. They have value, percentage, and quantity are the same. Obviously, it's 3 different addresses. And then the 4th address is borderline exactly the same as the first 3. It's just 0.0002% away from in terms of the percentage statistics from the 4th wallet to the first 3 wallets. So it makes me think that these wallets belong to the same person. It's one person or with 4 different wallets, because that's just really odd to me, especially for the first 3, because they are quite literally the exact same. They're carrying the same data. Now, there's a number. I mean, if you go down even further, I mean, I believe it's something like the first 24 wallets are 100 billion XYO tokens and higher. So, I mean, if you see a lot of these whale wallets stake a lot, which I'd have to imagine that they are going to stake a lot because they have more. So, I mean, we could totally push, a billion, a few billion or so, maybe actually getting somewhere down to approximately 10 billion XYO in the circulating supply after we see a number of XYO coins locked up into the chain, which is, again, also, like I said, it's gonna be a positive catalyst for the price of XYO itself as an asset, and it's also going to secure the network as well. Again, like I said, with functioning, again, with the staking, the governance, and also with the consensus of the entire system itself going forward. Now, we move here again into the GitBook. Like I said, they've added some new tabs that I wanted to go over. The first one here is going to be the What is XYO tab. XYO started with a simple idea. Data should be trusted, not guessed. Through the Coin app, we built a network of over 10 million nodes, showing that everyday people can help power a decentralized infrastructure. Today, XYO is a decentralized data protocol and one of the largest DePINs in the world. It connects real-world data to both Web 2 and Web 3 using blockchain, cryptography, and proof of location to prove where, when, and how events happen. This makes XYO a key layer between the digital and physical worlds, with real uses in AI, logistics, real-world assets, gaming, smart cities, and more. One of the big things I brought up whenever I go over XYO is just how far-reaching and how broad it is as a blockchain solution in terms of its use cases within the world, within human society and civilization. And obviously all of these that were brought up here, let's first actually, it's bridging the digital and physical worlds, again, being a DePIN, it's a data oracle. We see here again, AI, logistics, real-world assets, gaming, smart cities. Clearly, all of you are well aware of, I'd have to assume, of how much of an impact AI is making on the world, how it is just really exponentiating. As we just within a short period of time, this exponential growth, this AI is getting better and better and better at quite a fast rate. We've had plenty of people mention the whole technological singularity, trying to pin it down to around 2030, maybe 2040, 2050 or so. But generally, the earliest dates you see for this whole idea of this technological singularity and what that entails, the earliest dates are sometime around 2030. So, I mean, we really could enter a point in time in the near future, just within the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years or so, where we no longer obviously have artificial intelligence, but then we begin to actually experience general artificial intelligence, which this is that peak artificial intelligence, where basically we'll be reaching a point in time where a lot of the jobs nowadays, think about like fast food, simple jobs like stocking jobs, all the things that can easily be taken over by AI in tandem with the hardware, the robots, whereas you'll begin to see no longer humans are stocking, if you go into your local grocery store or some sort of gas station, or if you go to a fast food restaurant or any, maybe any restaurant, and you're no longer interacting with people. Now, this is something I personally think is like quite far into the future. Maybe it happens, sooner, within the next 10 years or so. I doubt it'll be that bad. At least I could definitely see within the next 5 to 10 years, certain things like kind of like overnight stocking jobs. Maybe it won't be as in the forefront of replacing like fast food workers to the point where it will begin to get quite dystopian very quickly. But obviously, AI is going to have a great impact, and we're really only seeing the birth pangs of early on tremors. And this is clearly associated with DePIN and RWA, as you can continue to see here. Logistics obviously is going to be, all of this is really working in tandem with each other. This is all going to be interrelated going into the future. Another big thing here is the smart cities. I think this is one of the biggest things, because if you think about, again, XYO being a DePIN, being a data oracle, smart cities are going to need to utilize something like this. And really smart cities and blockchain solutions are kind of, you can't really, at least I think, obviously we haven't really seen smart cities come to a notable fruition just yet. But whenever we do, smart cities, in my opinion, are just one of the kind of epiphenomenal, like byproduct things of the blockchain solution paradigm, this new technological era that we are really beginning to enter in terms of, obviously, if you think about the inflection point of the growth curve of something like Bitcoin is the kind of like the OG blockchain solution, or at least just like the first big one. There, obviously, when you go into the history and developing Bitcoin, there's a bunch of different technologies that were all brought together to create Bitcoin. and obviously other altcoins and other blockchain solutions and other layer ones as well. But as we go forward, I believe that these smart cities is, as I said, going to need to utilize something like XYO, and with XYO Layer 1 launching on September 16th, at least with a high degree of certainty, we can deduce that from the information at hand. Then XYO is setting itself up as a Layer 1 for the DePIN sector, for the data oracle sector. Again, real world assets here, RWAs, which RWAs and DePIN typically is often so considered a subset or a subsector of the RWA overall set. And as I brought up as well with the World Economic Forum, projecting DePIN to be worth approximately somewhere around 3.5 trillion, I believe it was, by 2028, from around the valuation of so now. It is around 115x if it actually ends up doing that. Standard Charter and Synpulse by 2034, 35, I believe, has projected the RWA space or sector to get to around 30.1 trillion. So, I mean, we're looking at trillions and trillions of dollars flooding into the space. XYO Layer 1 is dropping. It's going to become one of the pioneering. I mean, XYO is already touted as the world's first and oldest and largest DePIN. So now becoming not just your everyday DePIN where they were collecting data through the Coin app and various other ways over the last 7 to 8 years, launching back in 2018. Now it's becoming a fully fledged Layer 1 blockchain where all this data that XYO has been collecting is now found home on their blockchain that they have created, instead of putting their data on another blockchain like Ethereum or Solana, which is one of the reasons why XYO Layer 1 was created, is because they tested XYO as a company, a business, and a blockchain solution. Tried testing their data that they have been collecting with things like Ethereum, other Layer 1s, Solana, and it just couldn't handle the data because of the unique nature of the data being continuous, being granular, very fine, intricate. You know, we have to think about this is location data, this is time-stamped data, this is very intricate and intensive data. So this is why XYO Layer 1 was created in the first place, and which is actually something that we'll eventually be getting to further on in these tabs. But I wanted to stop here and kind of debrief the use cases here. Obviously, as I said, very far-reaching, and I think it's going to be something that's going to be potentially ending up like, I mean, right now, for all we know, in the next few years, XYO could become something like that Microsoft or Apple of the DePIN data oracle / relevance to RWA sector within the overall blockchain solution paradigm, and that is a kind of an umbrella. We could see XYO kind of become one of the top pioneering Layer 1 blockchain within this specific niche. Which is going to be very, very interesting. Obviously, it would be very, very good for the holders, for the people that have been holding for years and been patiently and with hope and faith as well. Obviously, you're investing a degree of uncertainty in this as well, waiting for investments to return and for there to be a lot of value that can be gained from your investments. Now, here as we continue, XYO Layer 1 blockchain at the center of the ecosystem is XYO Layer 1, a blockchain purpose-built for data. It introduces key features, permanent data storage, store hashes of off-chain data with cryptographic integrity, sovereign chains, launch application-specific chains with complete data control, bound witness trees, validate batches of data through root hash proofs, data rollups, compresses data sets for scalable, low-cost processing, multi-chain interoperability, connect with both Web 2 and Web 3 systems. Now, all of this was touched on and spoken about in the prior video that I uploaded on the structure and function of XYO going over this GitBook. One of the things also mentioned too was the sovereign chains, but I didn't really speak too much about it. And when I was actually reading this recently, it came to mind just exactly actually how important the sovereign chains are. As it said, obviously it says launch application-specific chains with complete data control. Now this is kind of a, as the name implies, sovereign chain, like kind of like a branching off chain, or kind of just a set of data, or just some sort of group of data that's associated with as it says, you're launching an application-specific chain, obviously having complete data control over such. So it's something, again, that kind of factors into one of the big aspects of the architecture of XYO and what it seeks to accomplish in terms of reducing significantly, so if not completely negating, blockchain bloat, which again is going to be one of the things that we'll be getting to here as we go on further. Here are the core technologies and solutions. XYO uses proprietary technology that runs throughout the ecosystem, making data accurate, verifiable, and traceable across both digital and physical systems. Its modular architecture and bound witness protocol create a strong backbone for DePIN networks, Web3 apps, and Web2 enterprises, establishing XYO as a foundation for trusted digital physical interactions. Together, these systems create a framework for trustworthy, verifiable digital physical interactions. And again, it really cannot be said enough, or really, I believe, overemphasized just how important this is, because it's absolutely data-centric. And this is one of the things I brought up in past videos talking about XYO, is just how obviously ambiguous and generalized data is, and how specific and nuanced that it can get. Because, I mean, data applies to literally everything. I mean, you interact with your phone. Everything is basically data, or just information at the end of the day. And when you have a blockchain like XYO Layer 1 being a data-centric blockchain solution as a Layer 1 that's seeking to serve to the industries that are data-intensive, such as AI, logistics, the healthcare medical industry, and plenty of other different sectors that exist within the overarching human civilizational and societal web within nation states, intercontinental relations. Again, remember the whole smart city aspect of this that I was touching on earlier. And even really when you think about yourself as just a citizen of a nation state, whether you're in America or you're somewhere in South America, Europe, wherever you may be, and just realizing that you have all of these corporations and these institutions that are centralized. When you go to websites and they're asking you for your cookies, or like all of your data now that's being harbored and utilized, and you have these centralized entities making money off of your data. And this is, again, one of the big aspects of XYO, is it gives, which is one of the general aims and positives of blockchain solutions in general, decentralization, is to give more power back to where it rightfully belongs, which is in the hands of individuals and not collective entities, not these institutional, conglomerates of men in suits, or, women in suits, whatever it may be, people at the top, the shadow hands, the powers that be, meddling with your data, meddling with the socio-political, cultural relations within a certain country, across countries as well. Obviously, one of the big aspects of the modern day world is just how bad it seems to be getting, and the fact that it keeps getting worse, and that's very much so related to this. And again, when you can give more sovereignty to the individual as opposed to the collective entities, then that's just, to me, at least in my view, a recipe for creating a larger, a more notable potential for a better future going forward, when we can lean on and rely on individuals having and displaying and maintaining integrity, rather than putting our trust within these, again, like I said, these upper echelon, these institutions, these corporations, these conglomerates of people in suits that are making all the decisions and harboring our data and doing with our data, our information, whatever it may be, at their will. But here to continue, we can see proof of location. Again, I went over this in the last video, but real-time validation, anti-spoofing protection, and variable location data you can trust is a big aspect of proof of location. Ground truth validation is associated with verifying the real-world user actions and enabling unique interactions with your product. A specific example of something like this would be package delivery. Something very simple, something that most people, especially your everyday citizen or civilian, a lot of you be very aware of how important it is to make sure that you're getting your packages, or if you're sending anything. Here with proof of origin, confirm where data originated, the order in which it was generated, and whether it has remained unaltered. Again, that's also going to be something very important that's associated with, again, like package delivery, logistics, and other things that it is applicable to. Here again, we see, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the dual token system, XYO and XYO1. XYO Layer 1 operates on a dual token model that separates governance and utility. Like I said, XYO as a deflationary token will be used for staking, securing the network, anchoring long-term trust and alignment. As I said, serving as that governance token. For XL1, again, like I said, XL1 and XYO are basically diametrically opposed to each other in a sense, with XL1 being the inflationary token used for various utilities, like I said, transactions, gas fees, smart contracts, and daily network operations. And if XL1 wouldn't have been introduced, all of these denotations of this new token would have had to fall on XYO, and it simply just like it wouldn't have worked. I mean, this was quite literally, like I said earlier, the necessary avenue to take in the development and evolution of the overall XYO network going into XYO Layer 1 for various reasons. And it actually, contrary to what many people may claim, is the best thing that XYO as a company and a blockchain solution could have done in order to respect their investors and that social contract that I mentioned. And again, this design keeps the network stable, scalable, and flexible for both users and developers. When it comes to the DePIN nodes and the coin apps, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with already. It's been out for years. It's been one of the main ways that they've collected data since the initial launch back in 2018 of XYO. The coin is, like I said, it's just a data node app on a phone, for example. Anyone can participate by turning their smartphone into a node. This has really been a big part of onboarding people into the blockchain solution space, with even a lot of them without them even knowing it, because they are simple. A lot of people think they're just downloading an app on their phone. It's something like, if you've ever used something like Sweatcoin, or like, it's also somewhat similar, kind of in like core ways, generalized ways, like to Pokemon Go, where you're just kind of playing a game on your phone basically that's related to location, geospatial data, things along these lines, and you get rewarded for it. So I mean, a lot of people have been partaking in, especially within the DePIN context, partaking in blockchain solutions without even knowing it, because they just think that they're doing, they're participating in this app on their phone that's giving them this in-app currency, such as XYO does, or rather Coin does with the Coin app. And then with that, you can use that to redeem for XYO or various other rewards for getting that coin and participating as a smartphone node. But like I said, it lowers the barrier to entry for decentralized infrastructure. There's been 10 million installs worldwide, 5 billion plus XYO rewarded. Coin is the simplest way for everyday users to join the network and contribute to a global data economy powered by XYO. Next here, we're going to have the XYO 101 page. Data is meant to be easy. With XYO, it is. This website is your guide to understanding XYO's ecosystem, including XYO Layer 1, XYO protocol, and XYO's dual token model or system. To learn more about this, and we're going to check out these chapters here below. They have beginner, intermediate, expert coming soon. Beginner here links to the XYO ecosystem tab over here, and intermediate to XYO Layer 1. But here we'll start out with the first one, beginner, XYO ecosystem. Welcome to the beginning of your journey through the XYO ecosystem. The section introduces the core ideas behind XYO, what is being built, why it matters, and how to take part. What is DePIN? As I've already said, or at least I think I've used the term DePIN, but DePIN stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network, allowing people anywhere to support the network by running nodes or contributing from their devices, whether that be a smartphone or a computer, whatever you may be doing. XYO has grown one of the largest DePINs worldwide, with over 10 million nodes and live applications. XYO Layer 1 is a blockchain built for data. It tackles the problem of blockchain bloat, explains its dual token model with XYO and XL1, shows how this design supports scalable trusted applications across industries that depend on verifiable information. What is Coin? Like I said, it's just an app, simple app on your smartphone. Download it from your native app store, allowing you to join the XYO without running a node in a proper sense, simply just carrying around your smartphone, using the apps, contributing data, and being able to earn rewards. And as we go on here, we'll just see how it works, how you get those rewards, and how you connect to the broader XYO, the bigger mission that they have in mind. So here with a brief on DePIN. Why does it matter? Like I said, Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network is what DePIN stands for as an acronym. And as I kind of already brought up to a certain sense of the whole kind of the dichotomy between like collective entities, institutions, think about BlackRock as a great example, even like the World Economic Forum, just higher up entities that obviously have a lot of influence and power in the world. And you have that side of the aisle. Then you have the individuals, the citizens, the civilians. Basically, it's also kind of like a dichotomy of centralization, corporate institutions, etc. Decentralization, giving sovereignty, more autonomy back to the individual civilian and citizen. And when it comes to DePIN, instead of a few corporations owning things like cell towers or data centers, DePIN allows anybody to jump right into the pool, the network, the community. And people can run devices, share data, or connected networks, and earn rewards for it. What makes DePIN different is that traditional infrastructure is centralized, companies build this infrastructure, they maintain it, they capture all the value. DePIN flips that model and makes the infrastructure open. Anyone can join with a phone or device. It makes it resilient, there's no single point of failure, and it makes it fair. Contributors earn value for their part. Now, like I said, again, traditional infrastructure, centralized. The new or the kind of the upcoming, the blockchain paradigm, introducing a disruption within the status quo of traditional infrastructure being centralized, pushing towards decentralization. DePIN again is not only, it's going to be likely, if I may say, this also just kind of pertains to my own leaning of belief, that DePIN will become a future business model for companies, for various things. I mean, there's a number of DePINs out there already, that like something like Hive Mapper, where it's just associated with collecting visual data. Like, for example, you're driving around in your car and you have a like a dash cam. It's collecting location data, visual data, and that's something you can contribute to the DePIN protocol. It's basically just crowdsourcing. Again, it's kind of like we're still seeing this kind of, obviously the collective entities of centralization, but there's also the kind of clearly a collective entity of the decentralizational context of a DePIN, where you have a bunch of, obviously it's a collective group contributing to a network or to a system, but the difference is that each of the contributors of the collective is an individual, as opposed to some corporate institutionalized worker that is, in a lot of cases, people in these types of, ways and of life, where they're at the top of, they're top of the food chain, they're at the top of the pyramidal hierarchy. A lot of these people are sycophantic, and they'll particularly always have the best ethics or values, or have the best integrity. I'm sure a lot of you are very well aware of what I'm speaking about right now, but the point for DePIN is really, again, decentralization, take the power away from these corporations, these institutions, these collective entities at the top of the food chain, and give, again, more power back to the individual civilian, giving more sovereignty to the civilian. And the reason why it's so important for XYO is because it's centered around data, which is, again, very, very important for reasons I've already brought up. And now for DePIN, in terms of how it works, having 3 layers, devices or nodes doing useful work, a network that collects and validates said work, and a system that records contributions and distributes rewards. The approach of XYO, having been running in DePIN since 2018, more than 10 million nodes contribute through the coin app, sending real-world data like timestamps, observations, and location relationships. This data is verified by proof of location, proof of origin. It's secured on XYO Layer 1. This is, again, being a blockchain built for data. Contributors earn XYO for their participation, while X1 powers activity on chain. How DePIN impacts industries. building trusted global systems that anyone can help run. Again, crowdsourcing instead of relying on a centralized entity. Also from mapping to logistics to IoT, public data and asset tracking for use cases of a DePIN network. Whereas we see with XYO shows how a DePIN can connect the digital and physical worlds at scale. What is XYO Layer 1? Why does it even matter? XYO Layer 1 is a blockchain built specifically for data. Again, can't be emphasized enough. While most blockchains are designed for financial transactions, XYO Layer 1 focuses on handling large amounts of information fast, efficiently, and at scale. And like I said earlier, with XYO testing out their data on already existing L1s like Ethereum, Solana, IPFS, and others, coming to the conclusion that it wasn't going to work. This is why we have XYO Layer 1. It's not just designed for financial transactions, but also for high throughput, granular, continuous, intricate, and complex data, such as location data, timestamp data, and various other forms of data that are intensive. In the XYO ecosystem, we see the data coming from millions of nodes, capturing and verifying real-world activity from the coin app on smartphones, already mentioned, to other devices for XYO partners. This network produces constant streams of data. A standard blockchain would slow down if it tried to process or validate all of this data and all of its specific characteristics, as I've mentioned a number of times. XYO Layer 1 was created to solve this problem. At its core, XYO Layer 1 is where verified data becomes permanent, again on chain. If we think about something like Bitcoin being the OG blockchain solution, specifically just being a financial blockchain solution that really just, in my opinion, represents the best attempt at creating something such in the context of a human being, or the human beings at large as a society, introducing a technology with which represents, as best as we've seen up until the current time, value in and of itself, which is philosophical backing of just why Bitcoin is as valuable as it is, why it really only does one thing, and that is just go up. I mean, it's just essentially in a macro, perpetual logarithmic uptrend. I mean, obviously there's been bear markets here and there, but it's got an elegant structure, beautiful structure that's basically, when you really look at it and you understand, the charts and market analysis, it's the only thing it does. It's just in a very long-term uptrend. And for example, with Bitcoin, another big thing about blockchain solutions in general is this permanence of information or data, and obviously with the context of Bitcoin, it's going to be related to financial transactions specifically. So, and obviously in the advent of a 51% attack, where there is a certain entity that's participating in the Bitcoin ecosystem, the network, that they gain a majority control over the blockchain, and in event of this, they can fundamentally alter the blockchain in terms of what they can go back and rewrite information. And obviously that's a big negative, especially in the context of the aims, kind of just the ethical foundation of blockchain solutions of Bitcoin specifically. And this, again, is going to be a big factor in XYO Layer 1 with the whole idea of data permanence and not having a system which is easily susceptible to attacks that can allow people to gain a parasitic, malicious control over the system and alter the information, which is what the centralized corporations, the institutions, these collective entities, these sycophantic, many cases, entities that are just leeching off of the populace and not properly filling into the loop the citizens or the civilians with which they have power, influence, and control over. And really, again, XYO Layer 1 is trying to do something that goes 90 degrees, or rather, I suppose 180 degrees away from that path of orientation. And we'll see here that also with XYO Layer 1 is a chain that anchors information coming from nodes, applications and services across the ecosystem. It also introduces, again, a dual token model. Like I've said, XYO stakes to secure the network, support governance. XL1 is used for transactions, gas, and activity within Layer 1. Together, these tokens balance security with utility, giving users and developers a stable foundation for building applications in areas like artificial intelligence, real-world assets, and other data-heavy use cases. Most blockchains struggle with bloat, a slowdown that happens as chains grow larger. In the next section, we'll be going over why this happens and what XYO Layer 1 is doing in order to tackle this problem by taking a unique approach. Here with Coin, honestly, I'm probably just going to skip this. This app's been out for many years at this point. Most of you probably already use this, especially if you're new to XYO, or if you're not new to XYO. And I mean, really, as we go into the XYO Layer 1 era, I'm not saying this is going to become obsolete, but this really isn't kind of the main focus right now. It's generally just a smartphone app that allows you to, like I've already gone over briefly, to contribute to the XYO ecosystem without actually running a node proper. Here as we move into the second section, XYO Layer 1. Welcome to the next step in your journey through the XYO ecosystem. This section dives deeper into how XYO works under the hood, why the system was designed the way it is, and what makes it sustainable, scalable, and ready for real-world data. Why did we make XYO Layer 1? In this page, you'll learn about the biggest issue facing large data-driven companies today, blockchain bloat. This problem affects industries like artificial intelligence, real-world assets, and DePINs like ourselves. The short version: most blockchains slow down as they grow, and here we'll get to see why this happens and what XYO Layer 1 is doing by taking a data-focused approach to avoid this dilemma. And again, like I said, blockchain bloat, a big thing. One of the main things why XYO Layer 1 came to be, because as I said earlier, they were feeding their data into existing L1s, Layer 1s, and again, like I said, it just wasn't working out. They're not built, they're not designed to process this type of data, which led to something like the whole notion of, which, not that it wasn't already a pre-existing idea, but blockchain bloat. So this is why we got XYO Layer 1. And how it tackles this blockchain bloat is, instead of requiring every node to store the entire blockchain, which most blockchains, specifically the Layer 1s, do that, XYO Layer 1 uses innovations like look-back windows and sovereign chains. You'll explore how its chain of chains architecture enables fast syncing, minimal bloat, and real scalability. Look-back windows and like sovereign chains and stuff like this, again, like I said, that's in the prior video that I made. I won't be covering that, but as I said, card for the videos at the beginning of this video if you want to go check that out. How XYO Layer 1 impacts big industries. Layer 1 is going to give industries a blockchain that can actually handle their data. Again, ranging from AI models that need trusted inputs to DePINs like XYO that connect millions of nodes. XYO Layer 1 makes large-scale data usable without slowing down, solving blockchain bloat by adding features like roll-ups, sovereign chains, and permanent storage. With these, it creates a foundation for logistics, healthcare, insurance, gaming, and more to build systems that stay fast and reliable as they grow. 2 tokens, 1 ecosystem. The token supports the broader DePIN, or rather, the XYO token supports the broader DePIN economy, with XL1 powering on-chain activity within Layer 1, and we'll come to see why this dual token model is important, how it separates concerns between the 2 tokens and increasing performance and creating value for both users and developers. Here for blockchain bloat. It's easy to ask yourself, as the blockchains become more popular, why can't X blockchain just make blocks way bigger and create new ones way faster? And the answer to that question is because of blockchain bloat. I didn't even know. Actually, it's the first time I'm seeing some of these pages too, but I'm not going to go over that video. I can't even watch it actually. But here with introducing blockchain bloat. Blockchain bloat is the accumulation of data on a blockchain over time. Most traditional blockchains require every node to maintain a full record of all historical transactions, from the Genesis block, that is just the first block, to the present block, most up-to-date block. As more data is added, the blockchain becomes slower, more expensive to operate, and harder to scale. We'll use Ethereum for our example here. Here's a quick look at how Ethereum's block size has increased over time. You can clearly just see here the increase here of the block size as time goes on. And we need to remember with each new block must be remembered by every node running the chain. And clearly, just commonsensically thinking about this, just imagine yourself as a human being. You have obviously a mind, you have a memory bank, you have, a kind of an unconscious repository of all the things which you've experienced, whether that ranges from your somatic senses of the body, your visuals, your smells, what you hear, what you think in your mind, those kind of abstract metaphysical, thought fantasies, which you kind of, simulate in your own mind. And imagine if you were constantly aware of everything at all times. Not only do you constantly have basically at the forefront of your mind, remembering everything you've always, or everything you have always experienced in your past life, but also on top of that, you're constantly aware of the in the moment active processing that your mind and your cognition is having to do in order to actually process the real world around you and actually machinate out your thoughts and your associated with like your feelings and your beliefs and so on and things like that. So imagine if all of that was just shoved right into your consciousness and you're aware of all of it at all times. One, it's gonna be very annoying to have all that right in the front of your consciousness at all times. And two, it's going to slow you down. It's gonna be overstimulating. It's gonna be overloading. This is why it's important for XYO to be doing what they're doing with Layer 1 in order to attack the dilemma blockchain bullet, because, like I said, with the analogy here, as each new block is included, it's finalized and included in the blockchain, that block then must be remembered by every single node running the chain. So, like I said, it's an overload, it's an overstimulation, it's just too much, and there needs to be some distribution and some protocols and other remedies to this overload of information to the processes of the chain. And as we see these chains grow and blockchains are seeing huge spikes due to new technologies such as decentralized finance and decentralized exchanges when they were created, the system, the blockchain that is, begins to grow completely out of control. I mean, it's also kind of like, just think about like a garden or like your backyard, your front yard. Like, you got to go out and cut your grass every now and then. Like, if you can't just let things grow rampant, like, you can't let it just go completely wild and never tend to it. Now, what XYO is doing and with this approach is a data-centric blockchain that's attacking the dilemma blockchain bloat, because the data with which they've been collecting cannot be properly fed into existing L1s. They created their own system, which will eventually be becoming an ecosystem, and they're basically just being good gardeners to their garden. They're tending to their garden, and the analogy here is that all of these protocols, such as roll-ups, look back windows, step hashes, everything that that's in this GitBook that I talked about in the last video is the tools in the gardener's toolkit in order to properly tend to their garden. And this problem here really affects all types of chains, from L1s, L2s, rollups, app chains. The growing size of the chain introduces several key challenges: slower block times and increased network latency, higher computational and storage costs, reduced accessibility for individual users and smaller developers, a growing reliance on centralized infrastructure, greater difficulty verifying historical data integrity at scale. As blockchains grow, they often become less inclusive and more difficult to maintain, shifting control toward large organizations that can afford the operational demands. That's also a key thing too when it comes to the modern day, the traditional status quo of data handling, information handling, and because of, obviously, as we see our systems growing and growing, becoming larger and larger, it's one of the reasons why it's maintained and sustained by large organizations, because as it says there, that they can't afford these actual operational demands. They're the collective, the people that can actually afford to maintain and tend to the garden, in the analogy that I proposed. Demand grows, but blockchains can't keep up. When you make blocks bigger and create them more often, you're drastically increasing how much data is added to the blockchain every day. So that's not obviously an ideal solution. it would be adding gigabytes, if not terabytes, of data each day in this case, making the blocks bigger. And when people need to access the data on chain, it becomes more expensive and time consuming to crawl through it all. These increased expenses hit the little guys first. Those wanting to earn Bitcoin from their laptop or join in on Ethereum to dabble in a completely new technology, which is, again, another reason why it's not good for all of these negatives and these dilemmas to be existing here, and why it's positive that XYO is attacking these dilemmas and providing solutions, because, again, it's giving, as this last sentence says here, those increased expenses due to an inefficient blockchain are impacting little people, most people that exist on the bottom of the hierarchical pyramid of society and civilization itself. The simple people that, like it says, wanting to get Bitcoin from the laptop, simply participate in Ethereum, just on their computers or however they may do it. It's pushing these people out, and these are the people that need to be onboarded into the blockchain solution space in this new paradigm, instead of having status quos and proliferating sentiments and structures that are pushing out the small people, the people that make up the vast majority of the population, and really the vast majority of the people that maintain the structure of the civilization itself, and make sure the entire society itself just doesn't collapse to the ground. Expensive, slow, and hard to use. To participate in a blockchain network like Ethereum, you need to run a node, which means downloading, storing, and syncing the full chain. Right now, running on Ethereum node requires multiple terabytes of storage. Archive nodes need even more. And if the growth jumps, only data centers and major cloud providers would have the power, bandwidth, and storage to keep up. It's already difficult for regular users with laptops, slow Wi-Fi, or data caps. With increased data, it may become virtually impossible. Again, another big reason why the solutions XYO Layer 1 is providing is of a paramount importance as we head into the future, and we, as citizens of not just your own nation state or wherever you may exist, but just citizens of the planet Earth, of us all existing within an interconnected web of humanity itself, where we see, as this next section is going to be speaking about, centralization not only becoming a problem in the context of the blockchain solutions, but centralization already being a problem and causing a lot of strife and issues within the real world. And when we can see all of this approach from a frame of reference that supports the power and the sovereignty given back to the everyday man, the everyday human, then this is obviously only going to be something that, if maintained and tended to properly, can uplift the individual, and I think actually enter into some form of a golden age of civilization, of society. As one of my future extrapolations and projections, I personally think that blockchain solutions in this new paradigm of technology, as far-reaching as it is, can usher in something close to, or actually a golden age of human flourishing, of human society and civilization at large, if only the powers that be, the shadow hands that these collective entities, these corporations, institutional conglomerates don't take over everything and use these new technologies and systems and innovations in a malicious way, so as to put down the individual and subject them and tyrannize them and subjugate them to some sort of world order that's not fair and just and poised towards the higher good. But when we see centralization becoming a problem, when we see only a few powerful organizations having the ability to run nodes and affording such, they gain control over the network. They can censor transactions, control block creation, reorder or delay certain actions, like I said in the context earlier of the 51% attack on Bitcoin, where you can have somebody gaining a disproportionate amount of control, 51% or obviously higher. They're going to have a majority control, and they can do such as censor transactions, control block creation, reorder, delay certain actions, and they can wreak havoc upon the blockchain solution, Bitcoin, for example, and cause things to happen within the system, within the structure that are antithetical to its underlying motivations and ethics and things of those nature. And this is opposite of what decentralized is supposed to achieve. Clearly, decentralization is not concerned with censorship, with subjugatory control, or meddling with and fudging the data. And how XYO Layer 1 solves blockchain bloat by being built to solve the problem of bloat at an architectural level. It introduces new approaches that eliminate the need to store the entire chain history for validation and consensus. Instead of making blocks bigger or producing them faster, blockchains like XYO Layer 1 solve the problem differently. And this is where we get into something like the look-back windows, only keeping the data that you need for real-time performance. It's very spontaneous, it's very distinct, and it's very it's very caterable to just whatever is necessarily needed within a specific context for, like I said, real-time performance or your real-time needs. Efficient consensus, validating without needing the full chain history. Like I said, with the analogy between your own human mind and you as a self having a consciousness, a mind, a soul, and a body. Imagine having everything, all the data that you're ever experienced, and you're processing, just always aware of it, and how overloading and overstimulating that's going to be. And even more so, why that's a good thing for XYO Layer 1 to be introducing protocols and solutions to attack those dilemmas. And also with the chain of chains, allowing applications to run their own chains independently and only sync to a main chain when they need to benefit from shared truth. This keeps the system light, fast, and secure, even as we see the data grow. Again, XYO Layer 1. Why does it matter? XYO Layer 1 is a blockchain designed from the ground up to handle real data at scale. It's built on the foundation of the XYO protocol and improves upon it by connecting individual proof of origin chains into a unified shared consensus. The result is a blockchain system that respects sovereignty, supports heavy data use, and rewards meaningful participation. Why traditional blockchains struggle. As we learned earlier, nearly all blockchains today struggle with blockchain bloat. When every node has to store and track everything, this makes the system slower and heavier, more expensive to run, harder for individuals to join, and easier for big players to dominate. How XYO Layer 1 seeks to improve blockchain design. Instead of using bulky and slow architectures like many traditional blockchains, XYO Layer 1 introduces a fresh design that keeps things fast, lightweight, and fair, while still being fully decentralized and verifiable. In 2018, Bound Witnesses introduced a way to verify the origin and validation of data between nodes. That approach allowed for trust at the data level, but didn't unify the data across the entire ecosystem. Now, with XYO Layer 1, Bound Witnesses are elevated as data payloads into a full consensus-driven blockchain protocol. Now, like I said, going back to 2018, Bound Witnesses is one of the earliest aspects of XYO before or pre-Layer 1. Bound Witnesses, as I said in the last video that I was going over this GitBook and the structure and function of XYO Layer 1, Bound Witnesses are the core artifact, specifically the data artifact, really kind of the crux, the center of the system where, these are the data kernels, these are the kind of the units of information, kind of the quanta, if you will, that obviously this is a blockchain solution. This is a system that's processing information or data, whether it be, in the case of Bitcoin, it's financial. Obviously with XYO, it's more broad, more vast than that. But clearly, if there's no information or data to be handled and processed, then there's no reason, the structure is useless. Without the data, without basically its coal or its energy, it can't do anything. Like the train can't run without its fuel, coal, whatever it may be. And then just like cars, need gas to run. In XYO Layer 1, like a car needing gas, XYO Layer 1 needs its data. And something like I said with XYO Layer 1, we're going to see the elevation of Bound Witnesses, elevation of data payloads, information within a full consensus-driven blockchain protocol being Layer 1, the home for XYO's data and what other data is fed into the system for use cases of developers and businesses, whatever it may be. Payload elevation here, this is really kind of getting into new like aspects of XYO Layer 1 that I didn't go over in the last video that are really concerning the actual kind of like getting into the nitty gritty of what XYO Layer 1 is doing. Here with payload elevation, Layer 1 is introducing a new way to promote data into permanent consensus. This is payload elevation. In earlier implementations of the XYO protocol, bound witnesses existed between isolated nodes and chains. They offered strong guarantees of origin integrity, but they lacked a mechanism to bring that validated data into a shared state, just a collective state, really kind of just thinking about a blockchain protocol Layer 1 proper. And then with payload elevation, we see that Layer 1 changes this. Data collected and signed by nodes can now be elevated into block-bound witnesses. One of the things I mentioned in the last video I'll bring up the image here, the image that I created in my own presentation to kind of distill and boil things down to a simplex image, which is the image you're seeing of where we see the pentacore on the 5 cell. It's a 40 polytope. It's a simplex being used with the vertices to model. We have the sentinels to bridges, archivists, diviners, and in the center we have the bound witnesses, which is in this case, as I just said, block bound witnesses, where we see this whole idea of payload elevation, or kind of data elevation, where beforehand we saw, before Layer 1, there was this bound witness data that was, as I said, isolated nodes and chains. Now it's becoming more into a shared collectivized state within the actual blockchain solution, the Layer 1 proper. And now we're having these basically bound witnesses blocked, becoming the blockchain itself, allowing it to live permanently as part of the blockchain. And this elevation is it's directed by scripts and transaction bound witnesses, which define what should be elevated and under what rules. These scripts are similar in concept to Ethereum's smart contracts. Once elevated, the payload becomes part of the current block, gaining permanency, traceability, and broader consensus within the Layer 1 itself. This links real-world data gathering with blockchain level immunity, or rather, let me restate that. This links real-world data gathering with blockchain level immutability, creating a seamless pipeline from data validation to shared trust. Here we can see with the bound witness trees, one of the things I went over in depth in the last video. Instead of packaging transactions in flat lists, XYO uses bound witness trees to organize and compress data. These trees allows multiple transactions or payloads to be verified together using minimal storage. The result is a more scalable system that handles large volumes of data without losing verifiability. Here we can see some nodes and participation. Actually, before I get to that, does this change? Okay, so here's the look back windows. We'll get some brief explanations here from the primary source for these, which like I've said, I mainly went over in the video I've been referring to. But here we can see look back windows limit how much of the blockchain history a node needs to reference when validating new data, instead of scanning the entire chain, which again is associated with blockchain bloat. Nodes in the XYO Layer 1 only work with a recent segment of blocks that are contained or included within the parameters of the look-back window. And this dramatically reduces storage and computation requirements, making the network faster, more efficient, and easier to participate in, also without compromising verifiability. It's one of the key ways XYO Layer 1 solves blockchain bloat and keeps performance sustainable at scale. Here with step hashes, providing a fast and elegant way to access different parts of the chain rather than scanning the entire blockchain. Step hashes create shortcut points. These allow for faster lookup, verification, and indexing, especially as the chain grows. It keeps the system lightweight and responsive. And there's a step hash function. It's a primordial function. It's basically a factorial function that's specifically related to prime numbers. And they use the step hash function as a modified primordial function, which again, like I said, that's also on the GitBook, but I'm not going to be going over that. I went over that in the last video. Proof of perfect here, when data comes from many sources, it can be hard to know which one to trust. Proof of perfect is a ranking mechanism that evaluates data options and determines which one is closest to ideal. It doesn't assume perfection exists, because obviously that's really kind of just unrealistic in the reality we inhabit, and obviously it's going to be associated with the solutions, especially technological solutions that exist within our world. And due to not assuming that there is that perfection, that perfect case, it uses comparison to find the best available version of truth. This is essential for high integrity decentralized systems. It's somewhat relevant to the notion of like heuristics. It's not trying to get that an absolute answer or perfected or answer, or it's not trying to achieve perfection. It's just trying to, kind of like a limit in calculus, get as close as it possibly can to, as it said, the ideal, get as close as it can to perfection, get as close as it can to a sense of absoluteness in terms of like truth. Rather, it's kind of using, as it said, comparison. It's trying to encroach upon the best available version of the truth regarding the data in the blockchain associated with the things like chain heads and other aspects as well. And this is going to be an essential for high integrity decentralized systems. And let's see here, some more here. In addition to these core concepts, XYO Layer 1 includes a wide range of features like framing cursors, rollups, and bearer proofs. Each one contributes to reducing blockchain bloat, improving participation, and enabling flexible real-world applications. Together, these improvements make XYO Layer 1 a leap forward in decentralized infrastructure. It's not just a continuation of the original vision, it's a new foundation designed to scale and interconnect data across an open, sovereign ecosystem. And coming to my mind as I was just now reading that, is this really, I mean, I was at work the other day, and I'm sitting here, and this is already kind of popping up into my mind beforehand, but just realizing how XYO Layer 1 being a data blockchain associated with logistics. Like, think about, fast food restaurants or other businesses, like grocery stores, just, businesses, stores in general. Obviously, they have shipments, they have trucks to bring them their inventory, to bring them the items with which they need to operate within whatever context they're operating within. And XYO directly applies to that. Think about XYO, again, just being a data blockchain. Imagine just any business, ranging from, things as trivial as like fast food and like grocery stores, all the way up to the like the medical industry, like hospitals, things like that, law firms, insurance companies, using XYO Layer 1 as a data oracle, a data-centric blockchain solution for their company, for their business, for their systemic operations. This is really, again, this is just how, in my personal opinion, not being financial advice, just how groundbreaking and how worthwhile and noteworthy XYO Layer 1 is as a technological innovation, as a solution within the blockchain paradigm itself and what it means going forward. And when you think about the World Economic Forum projections, Standard Chartered, Synpulse, DePINs, data oracles, RWAs, you just think about stuff like that, and it really just seems that if you were to try to reach a conclusion as objectively and unbiased as you can, just really looking at the raw data, the information at hand, and being logical with it, interacting with it in a commonsensical fashion, it seems that, if you kind of act as a kind of a human, a sentient and autonomous Monte Carlo simulation, and you sit there and you simulate, there's, it could go terrible, XYO could die off, it could, cease to exist in the near future, or it could be, again, like I said earlier, at the height of potentiality, come to be the Microsoft or Apple of the DePIN, data oracle, blockchain solution sector, and it could completely revolutionize and innovate within the real world, as obviously this GitBook is claiming at least implicitly, with the potential use cases and just how far it can go. And we look here at the nodes and participation. XYO Layer 1 is maintained by a network of different types of nodes. Each has a role in keeping the chain running smoothly and securely. Here we can see with block producer nodes. These nodes build new blocks from pending transactions. They are responsible for making sure the data payloads they follow. Wait, I completely butchered that. They are responsible for making sure the data payloads. No, that's just a messed up sentence. So it's actually trying to say that the block producer nodes are responsible for making sure the data payloads follow the XYO protocol, and they're also in control of what goes in each block, and then they publish it to the chain itself. That would be kind of associated with like the archivist, as I went over in the last video. Here are the validator nodes. These are reviewing the blocks created by producers. If something is wrong, they can propose a fix or rollback. They can also submit participation proofs to show they are actively supporting the network. Here, together, block producers and validators ensure that the chain stays healthy and that only valid data is accepted, because that is what is of utmost importance and value here. Rewards and incentives. Unlike many systems where rewards go only to block creators, XYO Layer 1 spreads incentives across different roles. Block rewards. These are paid to block producer nodes for creating new blocks. It's a direct reward for helping the chain move forward. Step rewards associated with the step hashes and with that function and how it segments and indexes the chain itself. These are earned by validators and other participants over time. They come from a growing pool and are released at key milestones in the step hash function. The idea here is to encourage long-term contribution and not just short-term mining. Together, these two systems balance immediate rewards with long-term incentives, keeping the network fair and decentralized. A really big aspect of XYO Layer 1, especially when you think about the symbiotic dual token model here, as it said with the step hashes, we're seeing the term, or we're seeing the phrase long-term thrown around, short-term thrown around, and there's this emphasis on long-term contribution, not short-term contribution, making sure that the people that become participants within the XYO ecosystem are here to stay for a long time. It's obviously going to cultivate a community that has integrity, that has resilience, that has dedication, that has loyalty, that and also ultimately what most people are interested in, because a lot of people aren't particularly into the intricacies of the blockchain solution itself and running a node proper, or really participating within the ecosystem. They're more or less just buying the XYO, hoping to get a good return, and that's what a lot of people, like I said, are interested in. So this is also associated with the staking of XYO and incentivizing this long-term participation, and that's obviously going to drive the price of XYO up over time. Again, we see long-term. There's this long-term mindset in mind for the success of XYO as a layer 1 as a blockchain solution and a technology, but also for the value appreciation of XYO over time. A chain of chains. One of the most unique things about XYO Layer 1 is its ability to unify many independent proof of origin chains. In the past, each chain could only represent its own state. Now with XYO Layer 1, those chains can link together through shared bound witnesses and create a collective state. This lets different data sources remain sovereign while still joining a shared consensus. It's a model that supports collaboration without forcing centralization. Applications and use cases. Because it's designed for high throughput and flexible data, XYO Layer 1 is ideal for, again, artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's going to be a very big thing over the next decade and longer. Logistics and supply chain already been a very important thing, will continue to be a very important thing within society and civilization at large. Finance and retail, obvious. DePINs, rolled assets, again, it's a nascent, emerging solution, specifically context within blockchain solutions as a technology. Obviously, with healthcare and pharmaceutical industry, gaming as well, oracles of various natures, and Web3 native applications, and also bridging Web2 to Web3 in the new age internet, if you will. Summary here of this is going to be, for XYO Layer 1, combining these new ideas, these proven protocols to build a blockchain that's light, fast, and ready for the future. Whether you're validating the data, you're producing the blocks, you're staking your tokens, the system is designed to reward real participation and scale without compromise. If traditional blockchains are rigid highways, XYO Layer 1 is a flexible data mesh that adapts as it grows. And really, again, thinking about what I was saying about the whole idea of the long-term contribution, the long-term incentivization, and the promotion of long-term in as a general phrase, really we can here just see a foundation, a proper foundation of ethics, of integrity, for values and ideals of XYO Layer 1 as just a technology solution itself, but also obviously with the company behind it, XYO as well, XY Labs. I think that this says a lot on part of them, as well as fellow human beings that are offering up a technological solution, a blockchain solution that can really shake the foundation, the fabric of society, if only things go well for it in the near future, if only fate, if destiny has decreed so for it to be successful, and potentially becoming even like the Microsoft or Apple of their specific niche within the blockchain solution paradigm, as I've said. 2 tokens, 1 ecosystem. XYO Layer 1 uses a dual token model to create a powerful, scalable blockchain ecosystem optimized for DePIN data and AI applications. The structure separates the foundational and transactional layers of the network, ensuring long-term sustainability without compromising speed or usability. The 2 tokens, XYO XL1, each serve a distinct purpose that contributes to the health and growth of the network. XYO is a deflationary token with a fixed supply. It is designed for staking and securing the network, offering long-term value alignment stability. Token holders who stake XYO contribute to the structural integrity of the blockchain, reinforcing trust and decentralization. XL1, by contrast, is the utility token that powers day-to-day activity on XYO Layer 1. It is described as inflationary, but this inflation is deliberately restrained. The inflation rate approaches 0.7% per year. XL1 is used for gas fees, smart contract execution, real-time rewards, and other core functions of the blockchain. XL1 is effectively deflationary through active use. This design ensures that XYO Layer 1 maintains an economic balance even while supporting high throughput applications. Well, going into the next new section here, proprietary technologies and solutions. And we'll see here core concepts and solutions. XYO provides decentralized technologies that validate real-world data with cryptographic certainty, from confirming the user locations to authenticating data origin and verifying physical actions. XYO supplies the infrastructure for secure, data-driven applications. Proof of location brings tamper-resistant validation to industries that need trusted spatial data. Unlike traditional GPS, it uses cryptographically signed, multi-party verified data to prevent spoofing and drift. This allows platforms to confirm where a device or user actually is. I mean, just to simplify it, proof of location is just bringing more trust and more integrity to the data that you are interacting with through the lens, through the context of blockchain solutions and decentralization, so on and so forth, cryptography. Ground truth validation ensures that reported actions, such as a delivery or entry into a venue, are proven to occur. This protects against false data and strengthens networks that depend on authentic real-world inputs. DePIN networks, for instance, can rely on it to filter out spoofing and maintain integrity. Proof of origin secures the authenticity, sequence, and integrity of data from creation onward. It guarantees that data comes from a valid source, has not been altered along the way. For example, industries like supply chains, IoT, manufacturing use this to trace products, confirm environmental data, and prevent counterfeits of varying natures. The future of verifiable infrastructure. Together, proof of location, ground truth validation, and proof of origin form a framework that connects digital systems with real-world certainty. These tools help industries build applications that require trusted, scalable, and verifiable data. Proof of location for more of an elaboration on. So we can see here that XYO provides a powerful and reliable business solution for verifying user location. This is going to begin to play a part in the whole idea of a DePIN business model that I brought up earlier. Now, whether you are building apps, platforms, or services that depend on physical presence, XYO's proof of location technology enables real-time validation, anti-spoofing protection, and verifiable location data you can trust. Anti-spoofing and location accuracy. Location spoofing has become a widespread challenge in mobile and web-based services. XYO's anti-spoofing technology ensures that only verified, authentic location data is collected and used. This helps maintain the integrity of your data, reduces the risk of fraud, and protects the quality of internal decision-making systems. Real-time protection with real-world data. XYO enables instant location validation as events happen. With real-time verification, your application can confidently confirm user presence at specific locations. This empowers you to take secure, location-based actions with confidence, whether it's unlocking access, issuing rewards, or tracking movement in sensitive environments. Now, as I'm reading this, something that's coming to my mind, and maybe this is a improper use case, maybe this can't happen, maybe it won't end up becoming a reality in the future. But I mean, think about, for example, in the case of, for example, Loomis within America, when you see these people show up to businesses and they interact with their safe, they are bringing you some of the native currency and also taking some as well. And you think about these people are having to enter into businesses or just obviously buildings, and really kind of the picture here that I'm getting at is the whole within the specific context of location data and validation, and specifically where it mentioned here, where, like, for example, when I read unlocking access, it was just making me think about, like, if somebody has to access a building in order to perform some sort of function in a business sense, whatever it may be, that this person has a device on them that interacts with the system. Obviously, these things already exist. You have like key cards or just actual keys that can allow you entry access into buildings. But this just made me think about how this is being, it's evolving, how we're seeing what the systems of old that we're aware of now, again, like I said, evolving and transitioning, changing into a new state, changing into a new paradigm where it's centered around blockchain solutions, decentralization, and all the contexts and the aspects that this brings into the picture. I mean, there's so many, in my opinion, there's so many different ways in which something like the XYO Layer 1 can be utilized that really it's almost as if the sky is the limit, and not even just the sky. Like there is, is there really even a limit? Especially as we continue to see human society progress, we see it evolve. I mean, really, I think there really is essentially infinite possibility here with just what XYO Layer 1 can do within the real world by offering solutions or, revamping old systems into the new era, or even introducing new solutions, new functionalities, new things outright. Better data and better partnerships. Trustworthy data builds stronger business relationships by using XYO to supply accurate, verified location data. You enhance your value as a partner, whether you are collaborating with advertisers, developers, or analytic firms. Reliable location inputs make your data more actionable, opening new opportunities, increasing long-term confidence in your platform. When it comes to the impact across industries, XYO's proof of location technology creates new possibilities across a range of industries, including gaming, supply chain, logistics, retail, healthcare, and more. When it comes to GameFi and real-world rewards, boosting gameplay with real-world verification, unlocking in-game rewards for real-world actions. I mean, just think about, again, I believe I did Pokemon Go earlier. Just realize how much more interesting and better Pokemon Go can be when it's in the context of like GameFi or using something like XYO. Or any other type of, like, Pokemon being a card game. You think about Yu-Gi-Oh! Being a relative and a related card game. Imagine some sort of like real-world mobile app that's associated with Yu-Gi-Oh! Or like back in the day, it's not really as big a thing it was anymore, but during my younger years, the like Bakugan was another kind of like a fad with toys and a TV show. And imagine like it's just again like really kind of factors into like the almost the borderline endless possibilities. I mean, like you see XYO is a use case within something as non-trivial, something as significant as like the healthcare industry and logistics and AI and machine learning, and then it kind of goes down into more trivial, less significant things like literally GameFi or just like games, like whether it's on your phone or virtual reality as well, due to the whole idea of XY bridging the real world and the digital world. But here we can, players earning digital rewards by physically traveling to target locations, making specific purchases, or completing location-based challenges. You can think about like real world, like scavenger hunts that are bridging, like you're using your phone to go out and go in the real world and scavenger hunt for things. XYO offers multiple overlapping methods for validating a location, depending on the use case and level of detail required. These activities can trigger in-game bonuses, functional NFTs, and cross-platform benefits, merging physical exploration with digital engagement. This location-based approach gives GameFi developers new ways to connect their virtual world to real-life behavior, enhancing immersion, engagement, and economic opportunity. Here we can see with DePIN, enhance decentralized physical infrastructure networks by ensuring accurate, reliable location data. DePIN projects often struggle with unreliable location data, such as null island, 0 degrees north, 0 degrees east, for example. And these entries impact the data integrity. XY's proof of location. With that, DePIN projects can verify real device locations, filter out false data, and reduce fraud. By validating and filtering location data, XYO enables DePIN networks to maintain accurate data sets, enhancing the integrity and reliability of data-driven decisions. Now, XYO obviously started out in 2018. Think about the coin app. It was just a simple DePIN. It wasn't an actual. It wasn't a fully fledged blockchain. It wasn't an actual layer one. But now it is, or it's soon to become a legitimate blockchain solution, an actual layer one. Not only is it going to be the home for and processing all the data that XYO as a specific distinct DePIN, and then all the data that it's been collecting, like it's going to become a home potentially, in the future for whomever may choose. So it's going to become the home for the data of upcoming or already existing DePIN projects. And it's dedicated to data intensive use context. It's dedicated to things like DePIN and plenty of other things. And so you can have, take any DePIN that already exists or a DePIN that may come along in the future. It's not an actual layer one, it's not a blockchain solution proper. It's not an actual system. It's just collecting data for whatever means, whether it's a smartphone app, whether, I brought up with like Hive Mapper, if you're like, it's crowdsourcing dash cam footage and or other ways in which people are taking footage and contributing to the ecosystem and the data within. So XYO is the thing that's going to make sure like the data will be filtered through XYO layer one first, and then it's associated with the actual DePIN project to build up that system that it pertains to. And so XYO layer one exists to make sure that data is, it has integrity. It's true. It's not false. It's not been meddled with. It's not been tampered with. It's not fabricated. And it's really standing up for the core, ethic, the core value of reality and life itself. Truth, an aim towards the higher good of promoting positivity, and obviously truth, breeds positivity, it breeds progression, it breeds development that it's aimed towards actual, proper progress, proper, development, whether it's of businesses, whether it's of individuals themselves, in whatever manner it may be. And that's again another reason why XYO Layer 1 is so unbelievably crucial, I believe, in the coming world, in the coming paradigm associated with blockchain solutions, decentralization, and potential golden age, as I alluded to earlier, if only things go down the right path. Here with supply chains, we can see that this will XYO proof of location specifically maintain accurate and secure location tracking within logistics and supply chains. Once a product leaves a facility or warehouse, it can be difficult to track. By validating item locations with XYO's proof of location at each stage, companies minimize loss, increase accountability, and improve issue resolution when delays occur. The added security and accountability through XYO's proof of location is unmatched. Here for something like event attendance to venues, concerts, whatever it may be. I'll authenticate attendance at events, conferences, or exclusive locations. This would also kind of go in hand what I brought up earlier about like thinking about like Loomis. Let's say that they visit a location when it's not during operation hours and they need to get in the building to do what they're doing, or whatever, you know, specific context this could be made to be in a scenario. This could, you know, be working in tandem with, you know, that location data coming into play with when it comes to with the, you know, the systems kind of the software, what the business is using, and obviously the hardware components are going to be dispersed throughout the building itself. But this continues to pertain to exclusivity and rewards being key in today's event attendance, whether it's large-scale pop-up concerts, or rather pop concerts, or healthcare conventions. Events often want ways to reward desired behavior and ensure no fraud occurs. Organizers partnered with XYO can use, I think it's supposed to say organizers and organizes, but organizers or organizations partnered with XYO can use XYO's proof of location to confirm attendee locations, offering exclusive digital rewards to verifiable or verified attendees. This setup not only reduces ticket fraud, but also boosts post-event engagement through personalized content. 3 modes of location validation. XYO offers multiple overlapping methods for validating location depending on the use case and level of detail required. Heuristic real-time. This mode provides real-time location verification using algorithms that evaluate different environmental and device inputs. It is lightweight, fast, and suited for ongoing high-volume location requests. Bound witness in the real-time contexts. This mode validates interactions between multiple devices in real time. It is ideal for scenarios where relative position and multi-party confirmation are needed, such as logistics handoffs, collaborative apps, and peer-to-peer verification. Here for advanced post-process, this advanced mode applies deeper post-processing to verify past locations with greater precision. This is useful in contexts where historical validation, auditability, or forensic level verification is important. This is all this is essentially the proof of location. Specific context or scenario, this would be the logistics handoffs, where like you have supply chains and there's this, you know, this inventory is taken here by this truck, and then that inventory that's delivered there is taken by another truck to its destination, or it continues to go to these handoff, these kind of intermediate stages, and there needs to be a way to properly track this data, which is needing to be validated and true data that's not, you know, made fraudulent or tampered with at the end of the day. And this again follows through with the proof of location and XYO Layer 1 general, offering deeper post-processing to verify past locations, verify the chain of data that's associated with the specific instance and scenario of logistics with supply chains and the traveling of inventory or whatever else it may be. All right, so here for ground truth validation, XYO's ground truth validation offers a powerful way to confirm the real-world user actions have truly occurred. Whether your business operates in logistics, Web3, gaming, or infrastructure, this technology enables you to verify actions with confidence, eliminate spoofing, and ensure the integrity of your data. Anti-spoofing and action accuracy. Users can fake or spoof their location data when playing games or completing digital tasks that connect to their location. When users create this kind of spoofed data, their data and the connected rewards for their digital actions are unreliable. This kind of volatility can cause false reports, cause companies to overpay users for false behaviors, and can even become more consequential when paired with high-risk situations such as those in military or healthcare industries. Like, for example, such as like the military scenario or context here with in relation to spoofing of data or information, especially like the location data. Like, imagine a military troop, a group of soldiers, or they're going to a specific, you know, they're given coordinates, longitude, latitude, what the data, the information they need in order to get to a specific place. If that information was intercepted from the sender of the native government to their troops, if as that information is being sent, it's then intercepted by a foreign enemy, and they spoof that data, they tamper with it, and they give them wrong location data, that could conclude with a scenario that takes these soldiers to the wrong location. Let's say that they were actually trying to go and rescue refugees or people that have been taken as prisoners of war for whatever else the situation may be. And instead of that, because the data was intercepted, the coordinates was intercepted by a foreign entity, let's say it's China versus the US or whatever else, then China could spoof the data and lead those soldiers into the wrong location where they get ambushed in a wartime scenario or some other military scenario. So, I mean, again, this is another, a non-trivial, very significant use case for XYO Layer 1 as a data-centric blockchain solution. But when it comes to this anti-spoofing technology, this is ensuring that only verified actions are recorded, protecting processes and improving overall data quality. Real-time validation of the ground truth data. XYO validates physical world actions as they occur. Whether a user visits a location, completes a delivery, or activates a device, the action is confirmed in real time, enabling secure and timely responses. Data quality and partnerships. Verified data supports credibility. By using ground truth validation, partners receive cleaner data sets that reduce disputes and support stronger collaboration. In the context of DePIN, we often rely on location data from edge devices and users, and accurate data such as default coordinates entries like null island or from GPS spoofing can reduce trust and affect outcomes. XYO's ground truth validation allows DePIN projects to verify that device locations and users are real and trustworthy, and not some sort of anomalous, a node, a node that's, says it's here, but it's not actually in that location that it claims to be in. And overall, this is reducing fraud, filtering out junk data, unwanted, unnecessary data, and results in better infrastructure decisions based on true physical world inputs. And when it comes to product placement, this is going to ensure product display compliance at designated store locations. Brands depend on accurate placement for optimal visibility in stores, but ensuring compliance across locations is challenging. XYO's ground truth validation enables brands to confirm product placement, guaranteeing that display agreements are upheld and that products gain their intended visibility. Brands use XYO's validation to confirm products are placed in designated areas, supporting marketing objectives and reinforcing brand integrity. So this is actually a use case here that's very easily recognized, immediately understood, because it's just, it's very simple. It's just talking about brands. Think about a shopping mall, for example, and it's talking about obviously product placement, things being on display, having a compliance, a conformity, a uniformity across the different stores of said brand, whatever it may be. Think about like Nike. Obviously, there's plenty of Nike stores throughout the country of America, making sure that they're upholding a sense of professionality in the sense of like conformity and uniformity. Like you go to this Nike store and it looks like this, and you go to the other one and they look the same. It's just kind of, obviously that's going to be a big deal as well when it comes to this sector of human life. Consumer shopping, again, we're going to see another kind of very immediate and imminent use case. This is going to be associated with confirming item purchases and reward consumers based on validated actions. For brands wanting to reward users for specific in-store purchases, validation is key. With XYO's ground truth validation, Coin's magic receipts feature lets users earn rewards by purchasing selected items from partnered stores. After shopping, users upload a photo of their receipt for validation. This drives loyalty by connecting real-world purchases with valuable digital perks. Coin's magic receipts enable users to earn coin by purchasing selected items, submitting receipts, and claiming rewards, connecting real-world purchases with digital rewards. That's very interesting. This is actually the first time I'm reading this. So I read some of what I've already gone over, but it'll be the first time I'm reading a lot of this as we get here towards the end. But this is something, again, very, very, I mean, just very, very trivial. It's not really that important for this to be a use case, but it is a use case, and nonetheless, it further shows the spectrum of just use case for XYO, ranging from super trivial, things like just, as I just read here with the consumer shopping. I mean, it's not really that important for this to even be a thing, but it is a thing. And then we range all the way up to wartime scenarios, broader military scenarios, law firms, insurance companies, the medical and healthcare industry, logistics, AI, so on and so forth. 3 modes of validation. XYO provides multiple methods for validating actions depending upon operational needs. I actually think maybe this was the same thing. No, it's just the same thing for proof of location. It is different information though. So when it comes to the heuristic, the real-time heuristics or ground truth validation, this method analyzes a combination of data inputs to validate actions as they occur. It is optimized for time-sensitive operations and is ideal for confirming simple real-world actions quickly and reliably. Real-time bound witnesses validates actions involving multiple devices or parties, confirming physical interaction and relative positioning, making it ideal for collaborative processes, peer-to-peer systems, or proof of handoff. Advanced post-processing. This method offers a detailed retrospective analysis for validating past actions. It is best suited for industries that require long-term record keeping, reporting, or post-event confirmation. And really, as I'm reading a lot of things like this, like where you get to heuristics and a lot of these other jargon terms that are probably going over the heads of a lot of people, especially those that don't really know much about blockchain solutions in general, or just not much about XYO, and especially for those people that are here just really kind of just to invest and try to make money, and they really just see that this is, to them, it's just an investment vehicle. They're not particularly interested or aware of the technology that it actually represents. To kind of really sum up this right here and obviously this is specifically pertaining to ground truth validation. I mean, really the whole goal of XYO Layer 1 is to create a system that is the home and for data. It processes this data and makes sure that it's data that has integrity, it's truthful, it's honest, it's not been tampered with. I mean, it's just, again, it's really, and obviously it's implementing all these different aspects and these functions, these protocols, like, speaking about heuristics or, the bound witnesses, various forms of like post-processing that it's spoken about here in these last 2 sections. And all this really, it distills down to the fact that really XYO Layer 1 is just something that's attempting to encroach as close as it can upon kind of like a limit of getting as possibly close as it can to, proper ethics, truth, honesty, integrity, and it really can't get any better than that. And that's really why this is such a groundbreaking solution within the blockchain paradigm, in my personal view. Now here, moving into proof of origin. XYO's proof of origin verifies that data has not been altered from its original location or source. It traces the journey it takes and can verify whether it has been changed. This provides a reliable record that helps organizations make decisions based on accurate information. Traceability across systems. Data produced by IoT devices, that's Internet of Things, can be traced through storage systems, APIs, and smart contracts. This creates a clear chain of custody, making data easier to use and confirm. Data quality and partnerships. Sharing verified and auditable data improves reliability and builds trust with partners. Proof of origin provides a way to certify the quality of data exchanged within an ecosystem. Smart agriculture use case. And here we're seeing, obviously earlier on already mentioned smart cities. I mean, obviously smart houses is going to be a thing eventually, but really smart, now we're saying smart agriculture. This is actually the first time I've seen this pop up anywhere in the GitBook. But just to, before I specifically get into this in the context of agriculture, but I mean, just in the future world of blockchain solutions, in this paradigm, seeing a smart this, a smart that, smart whatever it may be is, I think, going to become some form of new norm, a status quo within society, even more so kind of localized to just families and households. Obviously, like I said, with like smart houses and smart cities as well. But when it comes to the smart agriculture, farms using Internet of Things sensors for soil, moisture, and weather data can confirm that information comes directly from the field. This supports irrigation planning, crop forecasting, and resource management. You also have to realize, just imagine some point in time in the future, whether or not it's sooner or later, it doesn't really matter. I think at this point it's quite clear what trajectory we are on going forward within the overall evolution of humanity in terms of technology and the use cases of such within society. And we'll see, obviously, a lot of this is going to be merged with AI as well. One of the things that I brought up earlier in this video was the job market being replaced. A lot of your trivial jobs, like, your typical like 9 to 5 jobs, being replaced by AI, robots paired with AI. Also thinking about farmers as well. What's the point in actually having human farmers when you can have it all automated with AI, with blockchain, smart agriculture, for example? And really that can apply to just about every single sector if you really take it to its extent, thinking about AI, machine learning, automation, blockchain, and what that all these things have in common with each other, and aiming towards a shared goal between the different sectors. 3 modes of verification. XYO offers multiple overlapping modes of data origin verification to meet different operational needs. These here we can see data heuristic verification being ideal for time-sensitive applications. This method uses real-time algorithms to assess the credibility of incoming data. It evaluates multiple data points to confirm consistency and integrity before the data reaches critical systems. So really, again, XYO Layer 1 is kind of just a filter, a system that acts like a filter. Obviously, it does plenty of other things as well. But for data, it's really going to initially take in data wherever it may be, make sure it has integrity, makes sure it's truthful, make sure, obviously, if you think about proof of origin, which now being the section that we are going over, and what that means specifically within the context of supply chains and logistics, and just making sure that as the information is traveling, as we see the transition of data from X, Y to Z, whatever the specific scenario may be, XYO is here to make sure that the data that is being utilized, the data that businesses, the data that organizations, institutions, and even down to the individual level of civilians and citizens as well. The emphasis is on making sure the data that is being used within real world applications and solutions is data that should be being used because it meets a degree of integrity and honesty, trustworthiness, and plenty of other things as well. Bound witness validation. Bound witness pairs data from different sources in real time, confirming interactions and proximity between devices. This is especially useful in environments where confirming collaboration or physical interaction is essential. This would kind of go back to what I was mentioning earlier. I was specifically bringing up like Loomis, or whenever you see this interaction happen with businesses, but really just anything. Really, the point I was making when I brought up that specific example was the idea of where this last sentence is pointing to when it comes to the bound witnesses and it comes to the actual data artifacts of the layer 1, specifically obviously in the context of like location information, where it says this is especially useful in environments where confirming collaboration or physical interaction is essential, where we can see again just kind of the transition from you have a key card that gets into a building, there's obviously hardware and software associated with that, but now it's going to be associated with the blockchains. Really, I mean, blockchain solutions in general are just the new age system. It's the evolution of the systems that we've already been using, and now we're reaching a new paradigm. As I've been saying, why the main reason I referred to blockchain solutions as a paradigm in the first place, not just a paradigm, but a very, very, very significant one, I believe. Lastly here, secure post-processing analytics for use cases that require deep historical validation. This method offers thorough post-processing analysis. It supports compliance, audits, and forensic review, making it well suited for industries like healthcare, logistics, and finance. Again, really just showing the broad reach of XYO Layer 1 as a data oracle, an information oracle for various different sectors of society and civilization across the board. All right, so the next section we'll be getting into is uses of XYO Layer 1. XYO Layer 1 is built with both Web 2 and Web 3 companies in mind as one of the motives, one of the goals, and the aims of XYO Layer 1 is to bridge Web 2 to Web 3 and kind of bringing in this new transition that we're heading into with the technology in a very generalized sense, but specifically with XYO Layer 1 and its architecture addressing blockchain bloat by keeping the chain lightweight while providing full validation security. This structure makes it a perfect solution for industries and applications that depend on large volumes of data and data reliability. For example, artificial intelligence's need for trusted training data or decentralized networks needing to track devices around the world. Artificial intelligence, AI systems need accurate, verifiable data sets, and XYO Layer 1 makes this possible, validating the training data. That feedback results on chain without storing entire data sets directly. This creates trust in the process without slowing down the network. When it comes to real world assets, tokenizing assets such as property, goods, or financial instruments requires certainty that the underlying data is correct. With proof of origin and on-chain validation, XYO Layer 1 provides a trusted layer for transactions involving real-world items. Decentralized physical infrastructure networks. As the first DePIN, XYO's network of millions of nodes already shows the value of user-powered infrastructure. XYO Layer 1 builds on this by enabling data from devices, sensors, and edge networks to be validated at scale. This same solution applies to other device and product tracking industries such as logistics and supply chain ecosystems. When companies need reliable data, XYO Layer 1 creates an auditable record of each step, reducing disputes and improving efficiency. Again, just to reiterate this point, because it's really just paramount. It's literally the apex, really, at least the way I see it. And I think obviously a lot of other people that are familiar with XYO and what it represents as a technology would agree with this as well. But this last sentence again saying, when companies need reliable data, XYO Layer 1 creates an auditable record of each step, reducing disputes and improving efficiency. It's a data oracle. It's, again, very far-reaching. It's very ambiguous in the sense that it's not just only for this sector, be it logistics, or this sector, be it healthcare. It's literally can apply to just about anything because of the very fact that it is data-centric as a data oracle, specifically prior to Layer 1, obviously, with just the traditional XYO network, the DePIN of the nodes, where before, a proper Layer 1 of XYO was a thing, with the coin app, various other ways in which the data was collected. It was just a cluster of data that wasn't particular, it was isolated, it wasn't in a collective shared state finding a home on a blockchain. And really, just to highlight these two right here with RWAs and DePIN, this being a very big thing going forward because this directly corresponds to the World Economic Forum projections for DePIN that I've mentioned plenty of times. Real-world assets for Standard Chartered and Synpulse, their projections of how this space is going to grow. And it's really simply just boils down to the fact that it is kind of part and parcel of the upcoming, the revolution, the paradigm that we're in, where we are seeing, like mentioned earlier, smart cities, smart agriculture, smart XYZ, whatever it may be, because we are entering into a very unprecedented, also unprecedented in a positive way, but also its uncertainty is quite intense as well, because when you think about the idea of the technological singularity and the emergence of GAI and the just overall progression of AI and what that means for, the job sectors I've been bringing up and various other things. Not only does XYO provide a better home, a better system for businesses and corporations and institutions at large, but when it comes to as we enter into a world where there's a lot of these trivial jobs, like I've been saying, are going to be no longer occupied by humans, assuming that's obviously what's going to end up happening. It may not happen at all. It may just happen to a very small degree. Who knows exactly what is going to happen, but let's just assume that it's going to happen to quite a significant degree. Then in the sense of being able to partake in the ecosystem of XYO Layer 1 and make money off of this, and also just generally trading the market as well, specifically with the upcoming cryptocurrencies in the Layer 1s. But partaking within these decentralized ecosystems is going to be, I think, quite as we see time progress here over the next 5-10 years and longer, we'll begin to see the participation within blockchain solution ecosystems, in a sense becomes a job in a way, not obviously in the strict sense, and especially so in the way that we traditionally understand it nowadays, but and I mean that to say that you're earning income, you're able to provide for yourself in the various ways a human being needs to do for themselves, solely, or at least largely in part, based off of your participation within a blockchain solution and decentralized ecosystem that is, a very important part of the societal civilizational fabric and the interconnected mesh network that it represents going forward. Obviously, this is, not just something trivial as well, because this pertains very much to very important sectors of human life. Healthcare and regulated industries and areas where accuracy and compliance are essential. XYO Layer 1 supports verified data trails for patient records, pharmaceutical supply chains, or research inputs. Its validation model provides both transparency and security, again, just showing the vast importance and how crucial it is when it comes to the overall data. Now, moving into the architecture here, starting out with node structure. As with most blockchains, XYO Layer 1 is powered by a decentralized network of nodes that work together to construct, validate, and optimize the blockchain. All nodes building and running the XYO Layer 1 blockchain must comply with the XYO protocol to achieve the desired functionality. The architecture consists of 3 core node types: block producer nodes, validator nodes, and efficiency nodes. Block producer nodes are responsible for producing blocks. Validator nodes check for block compliance. And efficiency nodes are exactly what they're named, nodes designed to improve efficiency for other nodes and the blockchain overall. Specifically regarding block producer nodes, they are responsible for producing blocks from the pending transactions in a shared transaction queue. And really, obviously when the term transaction is invoked, most people think about monetary, like some sort of financial transaction, whether you're buying something out within the real world, or if you're making a, like Cash App or Venmo or something, and you're sending money between you and a friend or a family member or someone else for whatever reason it may be. Transactions aren't just specifically, I'm going to, pay $50 to buy what I need to buy, or I'm going to send this amount of money to a friend of mine. It's simply a transaction can be regarding anything, whether or not it's the exchange of data, when obviously data in various different means as well, whether it's data within the transactional interactions, the sharing of data between logistics, suppliers, supply chains, and the people that are facilitating that process, and obviously extending out to every other sector that's been brought up already. But also as well, each block the node produces, the block producer nodes, that is, include the hashes of any included transactions and any elevated payloads. For the validator nodes are responsible for a variety of validations in the XYO Layer 1 blockchain. One of the most common validations they complete are block validations. Validator nodes confirm blocks are valid before the slashing window for those blocks expires. This keeps block producers accountable and ensures a third party is validating their work. Once their validation is complete and results in an acceptable block or other XYO Layer 1 component, validator nodes can choose to submit a participation transaction showing the work that they completed. These participation transactions are key to the validator node's reward system through the step rewards pool. When it comes to repairs of the chain itself, in the event that a validator node detects invalid blocks or components, it can propose a repair, such as a rollback or replacement repair. Should this occur, the offending node that produced the invalid material can have their stake slashed. So it's as simple as this, really upholding, again, really what we're seeing here is a mapping of the already existing interconnected human network, within a nation state, intercontinentally. There's a social contract, and no less is there a social contract on the blockchain as well as a participatory ecosystem. So obviously in the event of an offending node, clearly there, if they are doing whatever it may be to provide fraudulent data, invalid data, bad data, whatever it is, again, that they may be doing, they're going to have consequences because of that. And in the case of this here, it is clearly that their stake that they have put up of XYO being slashed, and also in some cases a portion of that XYO being given to the negatively affected parties or people within the ecosystem. Those who were done wrong will obviously get some form of compensation, because that's kind of generally how it works as well nowadays with, think about legal battles and you get compensated, or like if you're at work and something happens to you and harms your work and it's the workplace's fault, then you get obviously compensated. It's, very commonsensical. It's really, again, really not much, if anything, really new to understand, because again, when it comes to these blockchain solutions, in many cases, it's kind of just a mapping of what we already understand in a traditionalized, centralized way into a decentralized and just kind of cyberspatial, and just a part of the tech age where we're seeing the or just as is the human race, humanity, reaching a point in time where we're becoming so evolved in the terms of technology and our intellect that we're mapping our socio-political, cultural interactions and that kind of mesh fabric that it creates. We're mapping that into cyberspace through the blockchain. But to continue here, for the repairs, in all the cases of accepted actions, both the action and original state remain in the blockchain for future transparency. In the case of a rollback repair is the simplest, but it's also the most disruptive repair. This involves resetting the head of the chain back to the block before the invalid block was produced for a replacement repair. This, in this case, a new block that supersedes the previous block occurs. This causes state aggregators to use the new block in place of the original block. The resulting state to be valid must result in the aggregate state that would have existed if the Byzantine block was properly processed. And just by Byzantine block, it's just referring to a bad actor, somebody who is attempting to cause chaos or disorder, or something within the ecosystem, the system itself, that is antithetical to its foundational axioms or aspects. When it comes to the efficiency nodes, they are broadly defined. Normally are separate nodes performing specific actions to improve the speed and congestion of the blockchain. Oftentimes, it offers an easy reference for other nodes to use, such as reference related to XL1 transfers and gas payments. When a separate efficiency node is used for this, block producer and validator nodes can simply refer to the efficiency node's reference, improving transaction efficiency while simultaneously preventing invalid transfers from being included in blocks. Again, very simple. Efficiency node does what it's named after, because, and obviously here in a specific sense where it's saying it's just acting as a reference in order to just again speed up the process, make it more efficient, and also dealing with the event of preventing invalid transfers or transactions being included within the blocks. Is obviously if it's included within if there's bad data included within a block on the blockchain, then that's going to, like an infection, it's going to affect the chain itself. It will become worse if not dealt with, which that goes back to the whole idea of like rollback repair and replacement repairs and providing different avenues. And in the event of if, for example, a Byzantine block or Byzantine actors, just bad actors participating within the ecosystem. Here for the block structure, and XYO Layer 1 blocks are a specific type of bound witness. Again, this is something that I touched on in the first part of this video. Really this video is not particularly a second part, but it kind of is a second part. But the video that I've been referencing, where we see bound witnesses were originally just isolated data clusters. Now they're becoming dedicated, collectivized, shared, data within a block. And some of the defining features of these the idea of block bound witness are the additions of several unique fields, such as the number of the block itself and the hash of the chain it exists on. As a bound witness in an XYO Layer 1 block also contains a list of each of the following, being payloads, transactions, and signatures. Here for payloads are data hashes selected for permanent inclusion or elevation in the XYO Layer 1 blockchain. Each hash must be validated prior to being elevated, and once elevated, it is stored immutably on chain. These payloads typically represent one of the following: a full transaction, a specific hash elevated from within a transaction, or a schema compliant payload added directly to the block producer, known as a producer payload. All payloads must conform to an approved schema, such as a transaction or transfer schema, to be included. For example, a block producer might include a transfer payload to designate the recipient of the block reward once the block is successfully built and validated. When it comes to producer payloads represent essential protocol level operations and must be formatted under standardized schemas such as network.xyo.bound witness. So obviously in this sense here, when it's referring to schemas, clearly as it did back here during the payload section, where it specifically said all payloads must conform to an approved schema, such as the transaction or transfer schema. In this case, it's basically just acting kind of like as identifiers, kind of similar to like you put in a URL in your search browser, it takes you to where it's supposed to go. These are going to be associated with these payloads and these schemas. These payloads are always generated by the block producer and will be fully validated when determining chain state. Examples include transfers, claims, protocol votes, and staking intents. Inclusion criteria: for a transaction to be included in a block by a block builder, it needs to be first order validated. This means that all payloads in the transaction bound witness must be available. Hash matches provided payload. Obviously, it's going to be a very core aspect of that, so as to continue on to pass full validation, because I mean, really, without getting into the nitty-gritty of hash and matching up with its payload and vice versa as well, I mean, really, it's just kind of like having a, back in something like preschool or, a children's toy where you're putting the right shapes in the right slots. You have the triangle, put it in the triangle slot, square slot, so on and so forth. You want to make sure that the hash is acting as an identifier in a way matches the provided payload, the information associated with. So you don't want to have somebody, for example, in a more immediately understandable case of somebody stealing your identity through stealing your social security number as well, which I had imagined that this is, now that I'm bringing this up, could be something that XYO could help with as well, with when it comes to social security data as well, and making sure that people can't take your identity and do the various things that happen along with that. But perhaps that actually isn't a use case. It's something I'm obviously speculating on, like plenty of other instances in this video. But when it comes to voting, block producers can participate and producer voting to vote on adopting a protocol update. This is done by the network.xyo.chain.vote payload. Producer payload schemas are going to be to the effect of, basically transfer here, chain stake and intent, chain claim, and chain vote as well. Obviously, when it comes to each of these different nodes, the block producer node is going to be one of the more important ones, obviously, just due to the nature of it being a block producer and how, just part and parcel blocks are of a blockchain. When it comes to the transactions, these are an additional type of bound witness containing fields such as chain, fees, EXP or expiration, and NBF are not before. These transactions contain information about the transaction and also have a specific script field that designates smart contract like scripts to be executed. Any script in this field must be a standardized script for the XYO Layer 1 blockchain, such as the elevate script that designates a hash to be elevated to the next level. And the signatures are simply addresses that cryptographically sign the block, hence the signature, representing addresses confirming block existence. Now for the transaction fees. Transaction fees are any funds provided by the client when submitting a transaction to be included in a block. Base fees are defined as the amount of XO1 that needs to be provided for a transaction to enter the pending transaction pool. If the transaction passes the initial signature check, the base fee is burned as part of the blockchain's standard operation. In the case that the transaction fails, protocol validation actor who is being asked to accept the transaction may claim the base fee by wrapping the invalid transaction in a claim transaction. When it's mentioning these base fees here, obviously this is going to be, as it says, in reference to XL1 and not XYO, because XYO is the staking and the governance token. Gas fee is defined as the amount of XL1 is provided to cover the cost of processing and including the transaction by the block producer. This is variable based on the size of the transaction, including elevated payloads as well, and the scripts processed during block building. If the gas is insufficient to cover the calculated cost, then it is not included in the blockchain. 100% of this fee, the gas fee this is, may be transferred to the producer's address of choice, which in most cases will be their own address in the event that they're the one doing the work. And earlier when I said that bringing up the importance, a notable importance surrounding the block producer nodes, clearly the other nodes, efficiency nodes, value nodes, are very much so important as well as it pertains to the efficiency and validation. Those are very obviously commonsensically so important, especially in the context of blockchain. But really the block producer nodes kind of acts as the way I say it, at least kind of like the capstone, and you kind of have as like sub actors the validation and efficiency nodes that kind of funnel into the overall block producer node and spitting out a block, and then so on and so forth as the blockchain continues to grow and grow and grow, larger and larger. When it comes to the priority fee, this is defined as the amount of XL1 that is granted to the block producer to raise the priority of the transaction. To determine the priority score, the priority amount is divided by the gas amount. When the transaction is included in a block, 100% of this fee may be transferred to the producer's address of choice. And now the next new tab is the incentives tab here. In the XYO Layer 1 ecosystem, and incentives are designed to reward meaningful contributions to data integrity, availability, and processing. Whether that be collecting, validating, or storing data, participants are economically compensated through the network's dual token model using XYO and XL1. Again, kind of going back to what I said earlier. In the event or the future case of a lot of the jobs, trivial jobs really, being replaced by AI and robots and other autonomous objects, they can do these simple and trivial jobs. When it comes to this right here, again, we're bringing up really getting closer to this point that I was making with the incentives, where it says whether collecting, validating, or storing data, participants are economically compensated through the network through XYO Layer 1, a part of the dual token model using XYO and XL1. Token-based compensation. Well, XL1 is often the choice of compensation for on-chain services. Off-chain services can also use XYO. For example, XYO's DePIN ecosystem utilizes XYO as an incentive and redeem item to encourage accurate and valid data production by contributors, data collectors, individuals or devices that gather real-world data, data processors, nodes or applications that transform or enrich data, data stores, participants who ensure long-term data availability and access. This flexibility allows for a wide range of decentralized services to operate within the network and be appropriately rewarded. The now we're here speaking about XL1 and XYO. I've already went on plenty enough why XL1 was necessary on two major fronts earlier in this video. Went over it more in depth and more coherently, I would say, in the video I've been referencing throughout this video. But when it comes to, again, we are in an era where obviously it started out with XYO 2018. It was just kind of an isolated DePIN. There was this data cluster, didn't really have a home. The team at XYO attempted to feed their data into existing L1s. It wasn't working for varying reasons. Therefore, XYO Layer 1 is why, or what was the solution to this dilemma that they faced after feeding their data into the existing L1s. And really there is quite a stark separation between XYO and XYO Layer 1, with the native token of XYO Layer 1 being XL1. Really XYO Layer 1 is the house and everything that it goes in the house, your furniture, your TVs, your refrigerator, your whatever it may be. Everything that goes in the house is the XYO data of the XYO network, the DePIN data that have been collected by the Coin app and various other avenues of data collection, processing and storing as well. Again, now, not only, I think it's very important as well that XYO didn't just feed their data into any which really they couldn't have, like I've already said, and they needed to necessarily so create XYO Layer 1 because there existed no data-centric Layer 1 which could properly handle, harbor, and process the form of data that XYO had been collecting. So we really are in a new generation, a new era for XYO as a whole. Not only are they the world's first DePIN, arguably, as it's touted, the largest DePIN, but they're now the world's first Layer 1 data solution, specifically focused on data in a broad sense, not just financial transactions, financial data, and financial means, in the case of example like DeFi and any other use cases. So this really is a big thing. Again, this goes back into the whole DePIN business model idea that will probably, I think, be an aspect of the coming future society and civilization that will be recognized for a vast and significant importance. And we see XYO here sitting literally right at the forefront of it. When you have the World Economic Forum and all these other institutions making the projections they're making, and with how big this space is going to be, again, we very well could be in the early stages of the Apple or the Microsoft of the DePIN sector, of the data oracle sector, the data-centric L1 space that might start booming over the next number of years, 10 years and longer, as there is further growth and development within blockchain as a whole, and also this specific sector of the overall blockchain paradigm. Here for staking, there's various types of staking. Staking with XYO and the XYO Layer 1 blockchain is integral to securing the blockchain, and users have more than one option for participating in the staking ecosystem. Node staking. There are two types of node staking: block producer node and validator node staking. Staking a node should only ever be done by the node owner and not a multitude of parties. Node staking includes risk of slashing, but gives returns higher rewards than system staking. And here, as we see, system staking, sometimes referred to as nodeless staking. This version allows users to stake the system itself rather than an individual node. System stakers earn rewards from the step reward pool. By locking up XYO to system stake, the risk a user incurs stems from the inability to quickly move the stake, but this stake cannot be slashed inside the network itself. Staking process, actions and rules, staking actions. There's going to be involving 3 core actions. Adding stake. This is when stake becomes active immediately upon being added to an address. Removing the stake. The initial staker may remove stake at any time, making it inactive. However, it remains at risk of slashing until fully withdrawn. Withdrawing stake. After removal, the stake must go through a cooldown period before it can be withdrawn. This prevents malicious actors from evading slashing by instantly withdrawing their stake. The cooldown period is typically defined by a fixed number of blocks in the underlying staking smart contract that facilitates these processes. Staking stages. Staking in XYO Layer 1 moves through 4 stages. First stage being staked. Tokens are active and there are rewards being earned. Second step, stake is removed. Tokens are made inactive and they stop earning rewards, but they remain at risk of slashing until withdrawal is possible. The third step, withdrawal is ready. After cooldown period, again measured in blocks, the tokens are unlocked and eligible for withdrawal. They are no longer at risk of slashing, but are not yet back in your wallet. The fourth and final stage, withdrawn. Now the tokens are returned to your wallet. The cooldown period between stake removed and withdrawal ready, so the second and third stage, prevents malicious actors from avoiding slashing by immediately pulling tokens after bad behavior. The length of this period is defined by the staking smart contract. Staking rules. Anyone may stake. Any participant can stake even without running a node. Again, that would just be nodeless staking, the most simple, but also your rewards will be less than, if you were a node staking as well. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to maximize how much you are, your rewards, the degree of your rewards. If you want to maximize that, then you want to do the more complex and more involved in terms of being a participant within the ecosystem. You want to do those forms of staking that garner those characteristics. But this also opens up access to a wider range of users and supports broader network security when you can have the ability to stake without a node. In a rewarding event, node staking, in this context, rewards are determined by the node owner, who receives both the block reward and a portion of the step reward. These rewards tend to be higher than system staking. Again, system stakers are not eligible for block rewards. Instead, they can earn participation-based step rewards. So, really kind of just have kind of passive, bystanders that are, quote unquote, participating in the system by just system staking, just doing the most mundane, simple, uninvolved form of staking. Whereas you have node staking are being done by like block producer nodes, validator nodes, the nodes that we've already gone over. So clearly, these people are going to get, there's going to be associated with the block reward of XL1 and also a portion of the step reward as well. And the reason why they're going to be getting these higher rewards is because they're part and parcel of building the system and making sure that the processes in which need to be done in order to make the system, shine with the light and illuminate with the light with which it needs to do so in terms of integrity, to make sure that the system doesn't become, to put it in analogy, enshrouded in shadows, to where we start to see a system taken over by fraudulent and bad and malicious data. These people, part of the nodes, are really in the weeds, so to say, involving themselves deeply so within the system, the ecosystem, as participants, developing and evolving the chain itself as time passes, as more data is collected, as more data is processed, as more data is stored, so on and so forth. And more details are also going to be coming with this on the future. Lastly here, for the staking section, we are slashing here is a security measure in the XYO Layer 1 blockchain. that holds node operators accountable. Through slashing, bad actors are penalized financially, for example, by losing their staked XYO. Ultimately, slashing discourages bad actions to preserve the integrity of the network, just like in society, in the real world. If you do something that is illegal, you're going to have to face the consequences, assuming that the systems within whatever nation, whatever country you live in are proper systems. They actually have, at least a threshold degree of integrity. People that murder, people that steal, people that do other illegal or just heinous things, you're going to have to face the consequences. There's due process. There's a certain series of events that happens, and it's just the same with blockchain. Because again, really, blockchain is just a mapping of what we've already been doing in these preceding systems to the blockchain solution paradigm, and now it's being mapped into cyberspace in the form of blockchain solutions, decentralized networks. For the purpose of slashing, this exists to, again, prevent these bad actors from doing negative actions on chain, just like you don't want people coming into your house and doing bad things, coming into your country, doing bad things. If a node submits invalid data, approves bad blocks, or interferes with the chain, it can harm other users' interactions and lower the trust in the blockchain. It's like in a workplace. Like if you are in a workplace and you have a person, let's say you're in a small workplace, you're just in a small office environment, there's 15 workers, and one of those workers is a terrible, severe, they're a malignant narcissist, they're manipulative, they're deceitful, they cause problems. This one person, one out of the 15, this can cause a major problem throughout the entire workspace. This is the reason why you want to get rid of these negative actors, these bad actors, and the actions, the data that they try to attempt at least to contribute to the system. Conditions for slashing: node stakers, these being again the blockchain producers and validators, put their XYO tokens at risk when joining consensus. A stake may be slashed if a node produces or approves an invalid block, submits false or poor quality data, or performs actions that break consensus rules. System stakers who contribute through the pooled staking option do not face slashing risk because they do not have nodes that can commit bad actions and threaten the network. Really, that last sentence here sums up very well the difference between node staking and nodeless staking. Again, really going back to what I was saying about how obviously system stakers aren't going to reap the best degree of rewards, and there's not a slashing risk for them because they're not doing really anything substantial or dynamic or really active, not really actively partaking or participating within the system. They're kind of just passive bystanders that are, I just want to stake something, but I don't really want to do anything to make the system work. I just want to stake and earn XL1 and get the rewards I get. Lastly here for the rewards section, the block rewards. XYO Layer 1 incentivizes active block production through block rewards. These rewards are granted to block producers every time they successfully create a new block, just like when Bitcoin, we see in Bitcoin, a new block is created, there is a reward. It's associated with halving. Started out at 50, then 25, so on and so forth as it halves every approximately 4 years, and whoever mines that block according to the proof of work consensus mechanism of the Bitcoin blockchain gets rewarded whatever the amount of that given time may be with the block. And really nothing has changed here for XY as well. Where we see the block producers are going to be given block rewards of XL1. Key features, again, earned by block producers. These distribution of so directly assigned to the producer's configured address, which is obviously in most cases going to be theirs. And the frequency is obviously every block, and the purpose is really to encourage ongoing block creation and to secure the network. So you have an incentive, a reason to actually produce the block, just like again in block or in Bitcoin as well. You're not just mining blocks just for the the virtuous sake of you believe in Bitcoin and its technology and everything else, and you want it to proliferate. You want it to become the next big thing within society, within civilization. You're doing it, well, I mean, obviously people are doing it because of that, but they're also doing it because they get given Bitcoin whenever they mine a block. And really the same goes here for XYO. When it comes to reward transfer, the block reward is split between producer addresses and step reward pool. When it comes to the producer address, this is a configurable address that receives part of the reward in most cases. Again, this is the address associated with the block producer. When it comes to the step reward pool, the remainder is added to the growing step reward pool, again being the remainder of what's associated with the block reward. And this dual allocation supports both immediate incentives and future network-wide participation through the step rewards that is associated with the step hashing and the, as I mentioned earlier on, the modified primordial function and these kind of these intervals that are associated with the indexing of the step hashing protocol. And every time we see these milestones met, that triggers a step reward pool it triggers a step reward to be taken out from the step reward pool and distributed as it should be in accordance with the allocation rules. And here, as I'm speaking about that, as we get into step rewards in XYO Layer 1 are designed to promote sustained participation by rewarding validators, producers, and passive stakers at specific milestone blocks. The key features earned by block producers, chain validators, pending transaction validators, system stakers. Step rewards are for everybody, just about. The distribution is from, again, the step reward pool at milestone blocks. The purpose is to incentivize long-term protocol engagement and decentralize the network health, and it triggers on milestone blocks. Again, those are the step triggers associated with the modified primordial function of the step hash. Reward pool growth over time. Every block contributes a portion of its reward to the step reward pool. Since distributions only occur at milestones and never depletes the pool fully, the reserve grows over time, which is obviously a good thing as well. It just further incentivizes partaking within the system itself, the ecosystem. Proof of participation. Participants can submit a participation transaction to become eligible for step rewards. Again, this kind of goes back to the whole idea of what I was talking about earlier, how transaction doesn't specifically just reference financial transaction in whatever context that may be specifically emerging within, but it simply can just be, as it says there, a participation transaction is simply a transaction, some sort of data that is denoting, hey, I participated within the system in X, Y, or Z way, I'm eligible for step rewards. And these transactions prove activity and put the stake at risk for slashing also as well. Again, further increasing accountability, creating and cultivating a system that is standing atop integrity itself, truth, honesty, proper ethics and values rather than, maliciousness, falsity, lying, bad data, so on and so forth. Here we got a comparison table when it comes to the features, block rewards, step rewards. So we can see that block rewards, again, are earned by block producers. Block rewards are given every single block for block producers. The purpose is to incentivize block production. The distribution is directly to the producers, obviously so. And the decay mechanism, yes, there is a decay mechanism decreasing per step. When it comes to the step rewards, these are earned by block producers, validators, system stakers. So, really everybody can, like I said, can partake in this when again, this is milestone block numbers associated with the primordial function. This incentivizes long-term participation for the purpose. It's distributed from the step reward pool. And when it comes to the decay mechanism, naturally there is one, as the block rewards decay over time. Again, quite similar to how Bitcoin's block rewards are decreasing or decaying, lessening over time. When it comes to how all this information works together for the rewards context and tab, block rewards ensure steady block creation and directly incentivize producers. Step rewards engage other roles like validators and system stakers, promoting long-term network health. This dual reward system avoids centralization and ensures broad participation across the ecosystem. Now, this was the final tab here for the new tabs added to the GitBook, and the day that this video is going live is indeed the day that the XYO Layer 1 will be launching. Actually, I just came across something on X, a comment underneath one of XYO's posts, and I'll bring it up here as I'm speaking about it, but within the XL1 wallet, it is showing with respect to the main chain, the actual fully fledged live mainnet of XYO Layer 1 being up and running within the next 4.5 hours, I believe. Is what the image said. At this point, it's about 3.5 hours, and it'll be 6 a.m. CST. So it appears that it will be going live, and at this point, that would be a confirmation very early on the 16th, the current day as I speak. But as we transition here into the next portion of the video, we're really kind of getting more into the technicals and also some with that fundamental preface there for XYO specifically, but now leading into something I've been going over recently, the bull market peak indicators, utilizing these to kind of sell at the top. So far, none of them, at least up until a few days ago, none of them had been hit. We can see here, there's again 30 of them. See right here that absolutely none of them have been hit, going all the way up here, except for the 12th one here, the Altcoin Season Index. This one here was hit a few days ago. It still is a 97% for hold, 3% sell, so there's still really doesn't mean anything. And also it's very crucial to note that the altcoin index has hit its 75 value and higher, which is when the all-time high signal flashes for this altcoin season index. This has happened twice. You can see here back in Q1 of 2024 and here very end of 2024 going into basically it was December 2024 and around December 2023, January 2024. So this has already been hit on 2 times prior to the current time. But what's very different about now is, which this is something I made a post about, but what's very different about now is that it's fundamentally different from these past instances, with obviously the rallies of Q1 of 2024 and quarter 4 of 2024 being associated with these 2 prior instances of this signal triggering. But as I said, the context now is very much so different in critical ways, where we see Ethereum sitting right at its prior all-time highs, even setting a new all-time high recently. The total altcoin market cap, specifically the total 3 chart, is sitting right at its all-time highs and has been pushing higher over the last few days and looking as if it wants to surpass with volatility that past peak. Bitcoin dominance has also been showing, as I've been going over, structural signs of impending breakdown. There's just a broad range of altcoins as well, XYO being one of them, appear to be exhausting their expansion phases, in which we will see historically associated with this. This sets a precedent for parabolic moves, where in a lot of cases this is associated with price discovery. And so seeing all of these now that I just mentioned, with the fact that we are seeing the altcoin season index hit again, to me personally alludes at what this data is pointing to is not just your short-lived moves. For example, here and here, this is the total 3 chart here in the middle. These were relatively short-lived moves. These were just a part of the upward difficult grind just to get back here at the prior all-time high. As we can see here, the total 3 chart currently sitting. Bitcoin dominance, you can see here, is still collapsing, currently testing this lowermost trend line right here that has failed to get back above since it really started mainly losing it going back to July of earlier this year. And so when we're seeing ETH sit at all-time highs, we're seeing the total 3 chart here sit at all-time highs. We're seeing, if we go here quickly to the weekly chart for XYO, we're seeing this expansion phase as it's building closer and closer to the actual prior all-time highs. It appears as if we are actually in that stage where we're going to see, again, this parabolic portion being where we see price discovery begin, and we see XY at least go up to this zone here of around 8 cents, pushing upwards towards 20, 22 cents, and maybe even higher. As I've established, I think anything up to $1 is quite reasonable. I think anything upwards at $2, even a few dollars, pushing $5, $8 is quite reasonable as well, especially with the fact that there is going to be a staking mechanism going live in just a number of hours. And if a significant amount of XYO is staked and locked up, as has been said by representatives of XYO, then obviously that's going to have a positive effect on the price of XYO as a whole. Furthermore, if we look down here at the others to Bitcoin, there's been this ascending uptrend since March of 2017. It's always acted as a bounce zone. Seeing a crucial vector zone here, this horizontal zone that's always lined up with, you can see here, the lows leading into highs. We're seeing the same thing happen here while bouncing on this uptrend, this macro uptrend. And again, this really kind of further points to seeing a, not just these, moves here for XYO where we're seeing the expansion phase, but we're going to see the major move towards the upside where we might see XYO do something like this upwards towards $1 and higher over the next number of months. At this point, I think, actually just stick here with this chart. At this point, I think if we see XYO hit $1, then I think at earliest, which I mean, really this doesn't mean anything, but at earliest, I would have to imagine late November, December. But if XYO is going to hit $1 or higher, then it seems at this point that it's going to be going into next year, 2026. Now, whether or not Bitcoin's going to top out right at the end of this year and we see altcoins lag a few months behind going into 2026, that might end up being the case. But for now, I think it is quite clear, or more likely than not, that we're going to see these altcoins here, obviously specifically with XYO, probably pushing, unless we just see, going back to this weekly chart here, unless we just see a major borderline vertical parabolic run up by quite literally just at the very end of this year, as I said, at the earliest upwards towards $1 and higher, we could just see a monumental rise where we see a very quick, volatile, parabolic, short-lived alt season and things just come crashing down. I mean, that could be the case as well. We go here to the daily chart. There's this symmetrical triangle that I've been pointing out. There's a fake out. We've seen XY come back up to the resistance of the pattern. So far, it's getting rejected currently. It's going to be very important to get above the 800 and 200 EMAs, which currently sit basically just right at a penny, about 0.0109. Then horizontally, some resistance around 1.2 cents, somewhere around here on 1.4, 1.5 cents, and obviously the 2 cents. The 2.2 cent zone right around here is going to be very crucial, as I've been mentioning for the last number of updates for XYO. The RSI here is still intact with the support associated with the symmetrical triangle. The MACD, again, is still just kind of been grinding upwards here with an upwards structure. I think kind of just demonstrating it being poised to it, seeing a notable momentum breakout, something like these in the past, but I think this upcoming one will be the most violent one, will be the largest one. Now, if we do, again, just to mention some potential downside, maybe Bitcoin enters another actual correction, a further sustained correction, it goes lower, maybe just the entire crypto market starts behaving badly for whatever reason over the next couple of months, which, I mean, already September's been a good month. It's been a green month, and typically September's are generally negative. But when it comes to potential moves towards the downside, as I said, right now still somewhere around like 0.005 to 0.006, somewhere right around here. And even zooming out further, it kind of just lines up with this general zone right in here, where we can see here it was support, then it turned into resistance here. It was rough resistance here leading into support. It's just a nice zone right here that's been resistance and support, so it makes a lot of sense to come back down to that if we do see a further retracement somewhere, like I said, around half a penny, 0.06, 0.07 or so, which has already been met with this wick back here. The supports here for the weekly charter, you can see all these are still holding up. These are 3 different supports or trend lines with, we see some wicks support here, a candle close support here, and wick support here. All those are still currently holding up. The golden cross, which happened back around July 14th, is still intact here. We're still seeing that shorter term moving average above the longer term. And like I said, a lot of times when golden crosses, they're not always absolute signals. A lot of times they can be false positives. A lot of times there's some stagnation afterwards. It doesn't immediately, as soon as the cross happens, we're just not going to see something like this and see a vertical rise in the price of whatever the asset may be. But it makes a lot of sense. I think we're seeing this. And again, I do think that it is shaping up to be, we're seeing, convergence, we're seeing pressure being built up here on the price. And with the nature of symmetrical triangles, I pointed out here on the daily, if you look at it, you can still kind of see this nice symmetrical fashion here on the weekly as well. These are neutral patterns, so it's only going to be confirmed when we see a breakout. But I think all things considered, looking at where altcoin season seems to be, Bitcoin appearing to be in its final thrust of its bull run, XYO Layer 1 literally coming out in a few hours, staking for XYO. I don't really, again, one of the things I mentioned in one of my recent posts on the channel is just how it seems to be a perfect storm is lining up for XYO. It's pioneering within its niche in the blockchain solution sector in the overall paradigm. Its use cases in terms of DePIN, data oracles, RWAs, major support by BlackRock. The World Economic Forum is for it. They're talking about it. They're projecting 115x valuation in the next 3 years or so. Again, RWA sector going around 30.1 trillion by 2034, according to Standard Charter and Synpulse. I mean, again, perfect storm, not just in the next 10 years or so, but even here in the next year, in the next couple of years, within the next few months. It just seems that there is, I would say just absolute base case for XYO, that we do see a move back up to prior all-time highs right here, and probably a little bit higher as well, again pushing towards like 12 cents to around 22 cents or so, and again maybe even higher as well. We also have to remember there is this uptrend zone here that we could see it was support here. It was lost again here, then we saw resistance. This is going to be this next zone again, further corroborates this zone that I've been talking about for months, and this is on this green zone here that I've been talking about before I noticed this resistance / support zone, which obviously you can see it was support back here. So this has been a very notable resistance support zone of an ascending nature, which points to, again, 8 cents upwards towards 20 cents and higher over the next couple of months, few months, going into the end of this year at least. I think, again, what we might see is we might see a run up to this green zone by the end of the year, see some form of correction, maybe come down to even like back to around like 6-7 cents, maybe 5 cents with some wicks. Depending upon how high it goes, if it goes to like 17 cents and it drops 60%, we could see a test of 6 cents again. That could totally happen. This retracement back here, midway of the past bull run for XYO, was a 69%. No, it was also 47% there. Basically just 30 to 70% retracement. So, again, it really just depends upon where we see resistance. So, again, take 17 cents as a nice range for the upper bound of where these prior instances back here have been met. We can see that if, 30% from 17 cents would take it down to around 10 cents, pushing 60-70% again is around 5 cents. So, we could be looking for a retest of a 10 to 5 cents after hitting around 17 to 20 cents or so. By the end of this year, we see something like this. We see the retracement and consolidation, and then we push further even higher upwards towards $1 and higher, pushing into Q1, maybe even Q2 of 2026, depending upon how things go. And just due to how vibrant, how much life force seems to be within the kind of the context of XYO itself with the upcoming layer 1. There's more backing, there's more force backing XYO than just simply an altcoin season. It's a genuine layer 1 solution that's launching, has a staking functionality for the current coin XYO that we're looking at. So again, really, there's a lot more here than just simply meets the eye here. When you look at the chart, you can see this chart here. It's a very nice long-term upwards bullish constructive structure, looks great technically, and then when you look at it fundamentally, again, this seems to be a perfect storm for value appreciation over the next 3 to 6 months and longer, and especially over the next number of years, 5-10 years and longer, when we really start to see blockchain solutions, DePINs, the RWA use case really take the world by storm, because that really does again seem to be the trajectory that we are going in as a society at large. When it comes to, if we look here at the RSI again, we're still finding key support here along the 272. Also seeing some nice convergence, some triangular like compression here of the RSI. As soon as we get above this 457 right here, that's going to be correlating to each of these past moves of the expansion phase, and will likely be finding confluence with the next move up to wherever it goes. Again, it might go somewhere up to here around 17, 20, 12 cents or so, or we might see XYOs blow straight through it. Maybe we see something like this and we see a move up above this resistance support zone, upwards towards like 30, 40, 50 cents or so, comes down and retests it roughly around like 15, 16, 17 cents, finds support here, flips this into support as it's been resistance, and then shoots to $1, $2, $3, higher, wherever it actually ends up going over the course of time. We can see here the stock RSI has been building upwards at a more violent rate than the price action. Again, as has been this convergent, this kind of neutral symmetrical triangle, whereas we see the stock RSI has been building up to this median point where it gets this inflection point, this threshold of at the value of 50. You can see every time it's crossed that in these past instances, it's been lined up with these notable moves since XYO has bottomed here. So we see this happen, and it's going to be off to the races, likely back up to the next kind of the magnet zone of the resistance support of the price over a long period of time. MACD has also been converging and compressing in an upwards fashion, upwards towards a 0 point. It got more oversold recently than any time throughout the last bear market lows back here, which is a hidden bullish divergence sign. So seeing the 0 point broken, we're going to see a major releasing of this momentum, this pressure that has been built up. Again, same thing here could be said exactly for the RVI without going back over it. I mean, these indicators are all kind of saying the same thing, which correlates this neutral price pattern here, symmetrical triangle, to actually breaking towards the upside rather than to the downside. You're still seeing XYO finding support in the uptrend that's been intact since March of 2020, as you can see here. Comparing it to Bitcoin, again, you can still see Bitcoin's been moving up recently as XYO's basically going sideways, but it's had some spikes recently here and there. But as soon as we start to see Bitcoin really start to take off again, it's likely going to find confluence with XYO doing the same as well, because as you can see here with each of these pink zones, this turquoise zone going forward here, in each of these different iterations of lows and highs, you can see, as is evidenced here on this chart, that with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, and XYO, temporally speaking, there's a temporal trend going back even further back into 2019, but more so specifically in the context of the current bull run. You can see here that the run for Bitcoin, run here for Ethereum, Cardano, down to XYO, and then here over the blue section here, they're happening at the exact same time. So I'm assuming that this trend will at least just roughly continue to stay intact and uphold itself going into the final thrust for Bitcoin, actually going into the alt season that people typically refer to when they talk about alt season being the parabolic portion. Then lastly, here we see the 2-week chart. Again, RSI inside Pitchfork, the ascending channel here, still intact, long-term support. Again, technically, XYO's chart looks just phenomenal in my opinion, and then pair that with its fundamentals. Again, it seems like a perfect storm. We see here the stock RSI still in crucial support zones of the entire bear run lows here, leading into the expansion phase lows here along 786 to 618 of the inside Pitchfork here on the price, which again is one of the reasons why I lean towards somewhere around like $1 to $2, because that's where the 618 to 786 here is the upper bound. You can see here that the initial highs of XYO when it began trading were 618 to 786 zone, crashed down at the bottom. 618 to 786 moved back up to the 618 786. Now we're seeing a move back down to the 786 618. Now bounce back up to that 618 786. Could very well happen again. Again, the MACD basically, this again, like I said, this is the 2-week chart, the biweekly chart. Basically the same sentiment here as for the weekly. We can see there is currently a brief breaking down here on the ASO, these symmetrical triangles that I've been pointing out. I don't think this is anything to be significantly worried about, because going back to here around June, basically the last week of June, there's been plenty of instances as I've been monitoring this chart where this line is below the support of the ascending or the symmetrical triangle here, and then price action to come in the future causes the line to actually continue to move back up here into the pattern and continue to go higher. So zooming in here, each of these times we can see that this low here and this low here originally started out as below the support for both of these, and I was watching them in real time as that was happening, but yet they always moved back higher. And even if there is a minor deviation that solidifies itself below here, I don't think it's a big deal, all things considered. Again, when you think about the technical, and that's just one indicator, it really doesn't mean much, but all things considered, technically and fundamentally, I don't think that one indicator is going to completely throw things completely off course and off track for XYO going forward. Now again, really to wrap this up, wrap the technical analysis up, as I mentioned earlier with the altcoin season index and how it seems to be alluding to taking in the current context of ETH at all-time highs, made new all-time highs, total 3 chart, Bitcoin dominance and the way it looks, everything I mentioned earlier, it really seems to be that altcoin season, the parabolic portion, is closer than ever than it has been during the current bull run. If there has been any time in the current bull run where it makes the most sense to see that, it is now, because of all of these different points I've made for the context of the altcoin season indicator, ETH, the total 3 chart, Bitcoin dominance, and specifically with XYO and its technical strength and its fundamental strength as well. But all this considered, even though this evidence, my personal opinion, and I'm sure to others as well, it appears as very strong and it seems to suggest a near-term surge in altcoins, we're going to be wise about this. We're going to show a degree of prudence. This obviously isn't an absolute conclusion. It's still provisional. Only time will tell what is going to happen. And I just want to say that to end off the video. Again, none of this is meant to be financial advice, but all of that being said and everything all gone over, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.